Just simply, why was it so difficult for the offense to respond to Nebraska's defense?
I have no idea. We would have known that answer. I think we would have responded quicker. Yeah, we seemed like we just never got it going until it was too late. Seemed like we just never got it going. Protections were a problem. I'm trying to be polite and say it because, if I can say the same thing you're thinking, but if I say it, you say I'm throwing my guys up under the bus. I'm not doing that whatsoever. Protection were a problem. We got to figure out a way to prevent that and do a better job with that.
Well, that is Deion Sanders, and that is where we are going to open the show today. It's Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I am Cole Bryson. And you know what? In a way, Diesel, in a way, not everything he said, but in a way, Deion Sanders is right. We can think it, we can say it, but if he thinks it and he says it, it is throwing them under the bus. And you know what? He's right about both. Here's why. You can say that as a coach, and we can criticize you and say, you know what? You're not supposed to say that. You as the coach can think it. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, we're not getting paid millions of dollars to lead the program and lead a group of men. You're the one doing that. You're the one that really shouldn't say it. Thinking it's one thing, but saying it's another. Is it time, Diesel, to stop giving Deion Sanders in Colorado the attention that they do not deserve?
Well, Deion Sanders doesn't have to throw his offensive line under the bus for not protecting his quarterback, because his quarterback threw his offensive line under the bus for not protecting. We had the audio. I don't know if we played the audio yesterday, but we both have heard the audio, of course, of Shedeur Sanders asking the question, how many times Royola get touched?
Yeah.
I mean, that is blatantly and obviously saying my offensive line did not protect me. And flat out, if I am an offensive lineman at Colorado, I'm just going to slide on to the right and let that linebacker right through and let him blast Shedeur Sanders. You're not going to talk about me like that after the game. I mean, why can't we talk about the athletes? Why can't we point out their mistakes? I mean, at this point, number one, they're legally adults. Number two, most of them are getting paid something, if not a large amount of money. Probably not the offensive lineman, but the running back is, the quarterback is, a couple of the wide receivers are, maybe a cornerback or a linebacker or somebody like that's getting paid a lot of money. Why the hell not? These are professionals at this point. They are getting paid to play this game. They are getting paid to transfer from this school to that school, even though it's illegal. You can't induce somebody off of a roster with money. They all do it.
Yeah.
Like those of you who, not to go down this rabbit hole to start the show and to take this whole segment off topic here, but all these people who said, man, paying these players is going to be a good thing. It's going to get all these negative, shady business deals, these $500 handshakes out from under the table. No, the hell it's not. It just built a new table for those shady handshakes to go on underneath.
So to answer your question, why can't we say these things? Here's my opinion. I don't think there's a problem. To your point, these athletes are adults. They are getting paid like adults. I don't think there's issue being critical and criticizing the players. However, from a quarterback standpoint and from the standpoint of the head coach, if you're leading a program, if you're the head coach or the quarterback, it is your job to lead by example and galvanize the locker room. It is very difficult, Diesel, in my opinion. It is very difficult to be able to lead a locker room, galvanize a locker room, if in the post-game press conference you're saying things like, well, how many times did he get touched? I understand the point. I understand that these are athletes getting paid millions of dollars, and I'm with you. I hear you. However, Deion and Shedeur, the only stance that I would like to see them take is the stance of, look, we hear the criticism, but guess what? We're above that. We're not only above that because we're making millions and millions of dollars. We're above that because we know what position we're in as the head coach and as the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of I, they, and not a whole lot of we coming out of this team right now. I mean, I would like to hear Shedeur Sanders say, we need to do a better job. We need to spend more time in practice working on our protections. We need to do things differently to keep this thing running smoothly.
Sure.
Because we win or lose together. No matter what happens, we win or lose together. But to answer your original question, I think the shine is very quickly wearing off the Deion Sanders apple. I mean, he won 4 games to start the season last year. Everybody was super hyped on him. Great. And then things fell apart. But we all kind of knew that was going to happen at some point, right? Like, we knew that there were massive talent deficiencies, especially in depth, but of course at a lot of the blue collar position groups on that roster, offensive line, defensive line, those position groups were going to be deficient. So, you kind of expected it to happen. It's like that scene in The Dark Knight when the Joker says, if a bomb blows up, kills a bunch of soldiers in a war zone, nobody panics because it's all part of the plan. Well, having those struggles down the stretch, especially once they got into conference play, was kind of part of the plan. Like, we all knew that was going to happen. But then we put an extra year under this thing. And we thought, oh, okay, well, you've had 2 full seasons. You've thrown a ton of money around. You've had your sons tampering with other rosters by DMing players and saying, hey, jump off your roster and come be a part of ours. Nobody talks about that, but it happened. And all of a sudden you say to yourself, well, this is the NIL and the transfer portal era.
Yeah.
You have, not in your words, I don't know, maybe he said it in his words, I don't know, proclaimed yourself to be some sort of a king of modern college football, and I'm bringing my Louis with me, and I can get whoever I want out of the transfer portal. Well, damn it, show it.
So here's what I say. Tom Brady, in the audio that we had a few weeks ago, Tom Brady was 110% right. Tom Brady hit the nail on the head. Colorado is the perfect example of a team, not a program. Diesel, I gave Deion Sanders the benefit of the doubt. I really did. And I still am a Deion fan. A lot of that has to do with him and his days in the NFL. But today I ask myself, if Deion really is a coach, not a hype man, not a star, not a celebrity, but a hard-nosed football coach that knows how to lead and galvanize a locker room and get the most out of his guys. Here's what's concerning. And, we're going to have people, 1 or 2 trolls who are just going to drop their comments and run because that's what they do. We're going to have people saying we're hating, but I'm simply reading what NFL executives said. Here's one NFL executive, Diesel, talking about Deion Sanders in Colorado over the weekend, by the way. Now he looks like a guy who lacks detail. His hard-edge style is running people out of there, and he is just really promoting his son. An unnamed NFL executive told The Athletic. A second executive told The Athletic, there is nothing wrong with what we said last year, that he tells the truth and connects with players. But there's a lot more that goes into it than connecting with the players and telling the truth to the media about the state of college athletics. A lot more goes into winning, like blocking, tackling, protecting the passer, having the quarterback not scramble so frequently that everything is off timing. That's what a lot of people on the surface level fans don't understand. They blame the offensive line for Colorado. They blame the receivers. But that NFL executive just said it. When you have a quarterback that literally scrambles every single play, figuratively, not literally every play, but when he scrambles, man, that throws off the timing with the offensive line as well as the receivers. There are now, and I want to get to this Shannon Sharp audio in a few minutes, but Diesel, there are now NFL executives who are seeing exactly what Tom Brady said come to fruition, that this is a team and it is not a program.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of questions have been asked and a lot of people have asked the question, and it's certainly a valid one. What happens when his sons leave Colorado? Like, is Deion going to be invested in Colorado anymore? He's got no more family around him to prop him up. He's got no more family to send DMs to people, to players, and tamper with rosters and hide behind that. I mean, where was Deion shutting that down, saying, Shedeur, Shiloh, you can't do that. DM players on other rosters and invite them to get into the transfer portal and come to Colorado. I mean, I'm looking at their 2025 schedule right now, Cole, and I'm seeing Georgia Tech. The way Georgia Tech has looked, as of right now, that looks like a loss. Wyoming, that looks like a loss because now you can't pick on a roster of dudes who are smaller than you like they did against North Dakota State. And then they host Delaware as well. I mean, it sets up their out of conference sets up about as good as it can for anyone. Yeah. They're playing 3 home games in the out of conference next year, which this year they played 2 out of 3 on the road, the game at Nebraska, and they'll play a game at Colorado State. I mean, they're going to get exposed and they're going to get embarrassed. And eventually the elite talent will realize he ain't winning. Like they may still show up for the money, but they're not showing up to be a part of a quality program. And they're eventually going to figure that out.
They may show up for the money. You're right. However, here's the difference between the teams and the programs, Diesel. The teams are being talked about at the beginning of the season. The programs are being talked about at the end of the season because they're winning national championships, right? Mm-hmm. They're Michigan. They're winning playoff games. They're in the playoff. That's 2 years in a row now, and I believe this will hold true. This is 2 years in a row that Colorado's talked about at the beginning of the season, but guess what? When it comes to the middle of the season and when it comes to the end of the season, they're nowhere to be found. They're not even relevant. So, yeah, we're hating. We're the ones that are haters when I have told you multiple times, I love Deion Sanders. I just don't know that Deion is the coach. You know what people make the mistake of doing? They make the mistake, Diesel, of thinking that just because someone was a great player means they're a great coach. By the way, Shannon Sharp, who I respect his opinion, right, played the game. I think he does a good job. He isn't happy about the poor performance in the loss to Nebraska for Colorado. Here's what he said. Shannon Sharp.
You see how I speak truth? Now I see why politicians get elected. Because people like being lied to. When I tell you the truth that Colorado can't run the football, just like they couldn't run it last year. They couldn't stop the run, just like they couldn't stop it last year. They couldn't protect your door, just like they couldn't last year. He's holding on to the ball too long, just like he did last year. Oh, how did you not look at that first game and see a lot of what happened last year? How could you see it had not reared its head? And I'm not saying that North Dakota State, that's a football team, and we're going to talk about Notre Dame, how they lost to Northern Illinois, and we see Alabama was in a nip-tuck ball game late, in the fourth quarter and then blow it open. So I'm not saying that. But when you look at an FCS team and they're having success running the football, they're having success putting pressure on your quarterback, what happens when you step up in level of competition? When you go and you face teams in the Big 12, what do you think they're going to do? Because they got legit D and O-line. And that's a concern. That's a concern of mine coming into the season. And I'm still. I have a question.
You know, I think there's frustration across the board, Diesel, because the media sold us this entire narrative of Deion's going to. And again, Colorado was nothing before Deion. I acknowledge that. Now that they went from winning 1-2 games a year to 4 games a year. However, I believe that we made the mistake of falling into Deion's going to turn this whole thing around.
Yeah, I mean, we all bought into the hype. We all thought, hey, here's this phenomenal player who a lot of people have a lot of respect for as just one of the best all-around football players ever. Great two-sport athlete. His resume as an athlete cannot be denied, right? But not all athletes make great coaches, and he had 2 good seasons at Jacksonville State, which is playing on a completely different level, and especially when you can get your sons, who are FBS quality players, who very well should be playing on a Big Ten roster or an SEC or an ACC roster, right? You get them to come to a school that hasn't won anything. Yeah, it feels great because, wow, we got this sudden influx of talent. But when you got no culture to go with it, you're going to put yourself in a really tough spot. Yeah, Deion can attract great players that he knew when he was a player to come and coach with him, and he can get media attention. He's phenomenal at that.
It's interesting. I want to get to this text from the 978 because that's where I wanted to go with Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback for Colorado. Texter from the 978 asks, where do you project Shedeur Sanders be drafted? First round, second round, etc. What's so fascinating about that, Diesel, is there were a lot of projections that had Shedeur as the first quarterback to go this year or next year, 2025. There were a lot of projections that had him above Quinn Ewers, above Carson Beck. And again, I think Shedeur Sanders is a good player. We don't know what he would do in the right system. In the right system, he may be very good. I just think sometimes you have to pump the brakes and maybe understand that the hype train that the media pushes on us, the narratives, it is a real thing. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback, but I just don't know that he's the best quarterback in the draft.
No, I've seen the same kind of mocks that have him far above Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck. And I'm scratching my head at it because, number one, you're hearing him say, I can't be great unless I have the absolute best around me. And I don't have the best in front of me, so I can't be great. Well, guess what, Shedeur? Wherever you go in the NFL, you're going to find yourself in likely a very similar situation. Could you imagine planning Shedeur Sanders on the Carolina Panthers roster and expect him to be significantly better than Bryce Young?
Right.
No.
That's unfair.
No, I don't, because he would have the exact same offensive line issues. He would be sitting in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, throwing his offensive line under the bus. Oh, how many times Derek Carr get touched last week? He would be saying the exact same things.
I talked about the NFL executives. I talked about the statements that they gave. What we're not hearing is how do the NFL executives feel about and think, what do they think when it comes to those kind of comments? Because I know a lot of people say, well, he's speaking the truth. However, again, this is my opinion. It's not the end-all, be-all, but I'm telling you, there's a difference in having an opinion and being a radio show host or a reporter like David Newton, who we're going to talk to later in the show, who does a fantastic job and is very opinionated. There's a difference in that versus being the guy. Diesel, I can have an opinion all I want to about this local high school down the road or the local college. However, if I go be the head coach, I can't say the same things as the head coach that I said when I was in the media. My job is to lead the group of men. My job is to galvanize the locker room and get them all on the same page and block out the noise. I don't think Colorado and Deion Sanders have done a good job at all of blocking out the noise.
Texter says, can't wait until the Panthers get the top pick again and Shedeur refuses to play for them because he's better than them. Well, Texter, you know what's going to happen. Shedeur Sanders will refuse to play for any team but the Kansas City Chiefs. And then he'll refuse to sign his deal because he's not named the starter over Patrick Mahomes. That's just the kind of player he is, right? That's the kind of, not the player, that's the kind of person that he is. Now, I'm fascinated to see where Travis Hunter is going to go. I mean, he could be drafted as a corner. He could be drafted as a wide receiver. I'd be shocked if in the NFL they gave him a lot of opportunities to play both. But I think he's a much more valuable prospect. If you're a team that kind of needs a little help everywhere, you could bring that guy in and let him show you where he could give you the most value.
Diesel, do you know, without looking, do you know how many yards rushing Colorado had on Saturday against Nebraska? Without looking.
I'm going to guess and say 88.
16.
Ouch. Ouch.
16 yards rushing. So it goes back to this for me. You want to throw the offensive line under the bus, that's fine if you're going to fix the offensive line. With the transfer portal and NIL, you have no excuse not to be able to do it in 1 year. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we could have sat here and said, you know what? You've got to give Deion 3, 4, 5 years to bring in recruits. However, that's not the case anymore. You can go and in one off season, by the way, it's been done. It's done every year. You can go in one off season and build a team to where it needs to be with a simple dollar figure. Guess what? There's no salary cap. There's no cap. There's no limit on what you can pay these guys. Colorado, Deion, if you're such a great coach, why didn't you fix the offensive line last year? That's the problem. Fix it. You didn't.
When we come back, it's time to dive back into the mud, the murky waters of this Deshaun Watson.
Ooh.
New allegations coming out about Deshaun, and it's gross. We're going to talk about it, and I'm going to ask you, Clemson fans, are you officially distancing yourselves from Deshaun Watson? That's coming up next right here on the Fan Upstates. If you're the Cleveland Browns, do you have a choice? Do you have to sit Deshaun Watson while all these issues get figured out? If you hadn't been paying attention, Deshaun Watson now hit with another allegation of sexual assault. He thought all this was behind him, and they just keep on coming out of the woodworks. They keep finding him. They keep dropping lawsuits. And this is just an ugly, ugly story. Who better to tell you all about it than WKYC in Cincinnati? Here's the audio, a short and condensed version of the audio from their report about Deshaun Watson.
Fresh off his disastrous start to the season, Browns
Insult to
quarterback
injury.
Deshaun Watson facing new trouble off the field. In a new civil lawsuit filed today in Harris County, Texas, a woman only identified as Jane Doe claims that Watson, then quarterback of the Houston Texans, sexually assaulted her in October 2020. Unlike the 27 other lawsuits brought on by women who accuse Watson of sexual misconduct during paid massages, the newest lawsuit accuses Watson specifically of sexual assault while on a date with a woman. According to the suit, Watson stripped naked in a woman's apartment and asked for a massage before sexually assaulting her. The latest accuser is represented by Tony Busby, who said in a statement to 3 News, "We intend to pursue this case with the same aggressiveness with which we pursued the others."
Jeez, Deshaun, what is your compulsion with getting massages and having it turn sexual?
You know, this is so, you said it going in the break. It's so muddy. It's so murky. It's so not good. And, you know, it's funny. You and I want to start by saying this. You and I were talking about this yesterday when we went off the air. We were talking about, because I believe this news just came out yesterday, probably maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock, about the time we signed off yesterday. You know, I have a very unique outlook on people who make mistakes. You know, I'm all for giving second chances in life. I think it's a great thing. Nobody's above making a mistake, right? I think we all have. However, at some point, when you continue to make the same mistake over and 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 over, you can't really say like, hey, he made a mistake, give the guy a second chance.
Yeah.
And that's where I am on this whole Deshaun Watson situation. Because again, nobody's above making mistakes. I don't look at Deshaun any different than anybody else. However, there is a point where you and the position that you're in as an NFL quarterback have to recognize, hey, you know what? This probably isn't going to end well. And Diesel, I'm just shocked. I know he made a ton of them. I know he did a lot of I know he's had a lot of these incidents. I just, at some point, I don't know that this is going to end goodly in terms of his football career. I think this will hurt. This one right here might be the death of Deshaun Watson.
I mean, JB cracked the joke. We've seen people crack. I mean, even the reporter there cracked the joke about Deshaun Watson coming off of a disastrous performance. Like, I mean, he was awful. He was awful in week 1 against Dallas. 21 of 45 for 169 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And I mean, that shouldn't even matter. Obviously, that shouldn't be a part of it, but people are going to use that information against him. I mean, Deshaun Watson, when he was on top of the world, was an untouchable quarterback. When everything was going his way, he played fantastic football. And then something just broke in Deshaun's mind. And that's one of those things you're going to need. I mean, you're going to need a psychotherapist to crack that code and figure out, allegedly, because none of these lawsuits, none of these accusations were ever proven, but he did pay to have them go away. Allegedly, the dude just got into the NFL and his entire mindset and mentality changed from being the nice guy to being the naughty boy, where all he wanted to do. And like, I remember early on in his NFL career when videos surfaced of him hanging out at a house with a porn star, Mia Khalifa, and they were playing like Nerf basketball and she tried to dunk on him and all that stuff. And like, I'm like, who is this guy? Like, now that he has the money and he has the clout, and like, if you're a college football star, maybe you don't have the clout to just DM any celebrity woman that you want to talk to and get her to respond.
Yeah.
But once you become an NFL level quarterback, all of a sudden you do. You have the money, you have the attention, you have the praise, you have all these people all over the world telling you you're a good guy.
Yeah.
Because you gave your first game check to the support staff who were having a hard time paying their bills. And I don't understand. I can't fathom what goes on, what changes and clicks into somebody's mind like that.
I can't either. And I'll tell you this, we can laugh about it. We can joke about it. The reality is what you just said, Diesel, what you just at the very end, you can't comprehend. You can't fathom what makes somebody. That's not just, again, not to get on a soapbox. That's not just Deshaun's issue. That's a lot of issues in the world. I mean, whether it be school shootings or sexual assault or anything, there are just certain things that you look at situations and you think, what makes a person do that, right? What makes a person do it? And I think it's very important to understand and address that you and I probably have not had the same thoughts that a lot of these people have. But whatever they're going through, kind of like we talked about a few weeks ago, like somebody needs to understand in this country that politics aside, we need to understand that the most important thing for the human race and for America is for people to get help, whether it's with, their sexuality, how they identify, how they are raised, like
how they deal with anger,
how they deal with a lot of things. And again, deep down, there's something in Deshaun Watson that he can't stop. And again, whether this story is true or not, you and I, obviously, we're just reporting on what has been reported already.
Sure.
But what's so fascinating and hard to understand and comprehend is, you're at the top. You're at the top. Like, you have all the money, all the fame. You're a really good football player, and that's not enough. You have to go and have these things continue to pop up, and it just is hard. To your point, it's hard to fathom. I hate it for all the parties involved, but I just don't see how. Again, the Cleveland Browns made the mistake of overpaying for Deshaun Watson. That's the first mistake.
That might be the smartest thing that David Tepper ever did, was say, nope, we're not going after Deshaun Watson.
Well, they didn't, and then the Browns weren't dumb enough to sign him to the most guaranteed money ever in the history of the NFL. And now they're stuck.
Yeah.
And you asked the question earlier, like, what do they do? Well, what can they do? They're kind of handcuffed, right? I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Sit the highest paid player? Now that Dak's the highest paid, Deshaun's not, but this guy's making millions and millions of dollars.
Well,
I don't know.
Wesley Roberts on the stream brings up a very interesting point. And there's some details, obviously, that WKYC Cleveland report didn't have, details that I assume at this point are confirmed. But Wesley Roberts says, I don't condone any of Deshaun Watson's behavior, but I read an article saying this woman didn't feel comfortable going out in public with him, so had him come to her apartment. Why don't you feel comfortable in public? If you don't want to be seen with him, why have him to your place alone? Well, number one, Wesley, that is edging against victim blaming. You're blaming the woman for what happened to her. The recent article that I read said that Deshaun came to her apartment to go out on a date, and she wasn't quite ready yet. So she was in the bathroom putting her makeup on. And when she came out of the bathroom, Deshaun Watson was stripped completely naked, standing in her bedroom or standing in her living room. Now, in what world can you blame the woman he's going out on a date with if that story is true? In no situation whatsoever.
Yeah.
Is that in any way condonable or understandable? I mean, look, I grew up in the era of the raunchy comedies, and I remember, I think it was Not Another Teen Movie, where even Chris Evans, the guy that played Captain America in that movie, he comes out in a whipped cream bikini. Or he comes out with whipped cream covering his genitals. And like, that was considered comedy at the time.
Yeah.
This happened in real life.
Right.
She's just in there trying to put her mascara on and look pretty for a date, and he's completely butt naked. I mean, this sounds like a really dark and creepy Seinfeld episode where somehow George got something on his pants, and in trying to clean off his pants, he got something on his shirt. So he takes it all off, and all of a sudden his date comes out and he's standing in his underwear.
Yeah, and what's so difficult with these stories is, you and I can give opinions. The Tolos, the listeners, we don't know every single fact. We can give our opinion, but, we have a lot of texts that have come in about the other side. Why didn't she come forward when all the other women came forward? And look, there may be a lot of points that are true. We're not saying you're all wrong. This is what we know. This is the facts.
But also, when a alleged victim, again, we don't know for sure if she's telling the truth. But when somebody who's claiming something was done wrong to them, when they choose to bring the information public, is not an indictment on them. So stop with that.
That's not incriminating.
Why didn't she bring it out when all the other ones? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it happened, it happened, right? If it happened, it happened. Everybody tried to dismiss the first batch of 30 allegations, saying, well, if they all came out at the same time, which proves that they're lying, it proves that they're colluding. Well, which is it? Which way do you want it? If you come out with a big group, people will say you're lying because you're in a big group.
Yeah.
If you come out alone, people will say you're lying because you came out alone with this.
No, there's going to be narratives either way.
Which way do you want it, Texter?
On the football side of things, he's terrible right now. And I was talking about this the other day with somebody. I don't know how in the world he's gone from as good as he was first year in the NFL, even to his college career. I don't know how he's gone from that to as bad as he is. You said it. Yesterday, or Sunday rather, he did nothing. I mean, what did he have? 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, a QBR of 9.3. So I don't know. Here's what we don't know.
Sounds like he's broken, honestly.
Well, it does sound like that. I don't know if what's going on off the field is affecting his play. It certainly could be. I mean, we can't just throw that out and say, oh, there's no way, he can compartmentalize what's happening, because the reality of it is some people can Diesel to an extent, but what's going on in your personal life, at some point when it gets to be that serious, it's going to bleed over in your work.
I genuinely want to know, and, all contracts these days are negotiable, right? Even if it seems, except for maybe the ACC's grant of rights, it seems like no matter what the terms of a contract are, you can always get out of it, right? You can always just renegotiate. I mean, at what point, and I guess it depends on what happens with these allegations, at what point can the Cleveland Browns sue to get out of their contract with Deshaun? I mean, I don't know how much money is guaranteed still to come that hasn't been paid out yet. But if you're the Cleveland Browns, and what was the total money before? $240 million, something like that?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So if you could if you could go to the NFL and sue and say, guys, this guy's a real scumbag. He makes our organization look terrible. It's detrimental to what it is we're trying to do as an organization and as a league. We want to sue to get out of the remaining $120 million we owe this guy.
Well, they might not have to do that. Here's paragraph 42 of Deshaun Watson's contract. And there might be some big legal words in here that, I can't pronounce, but I will try my best. The full language of paragraph 42, Diesel. Player hereby represents and warrants, except as otherwise disclosed to club in writing, as of the date hereof, that one player has not been charged with, indicted for, convicted of, or pled to any felony or misdemeanor involving fraud or moral turpitude. Player has not engaged in conduct which could subject him to a charge, indictment, or conviction of any such offense. No circumstances exist that would prevent players' continuing availability to the club for duration of this contract. So,
conduct detrimental.
The answer to your question is maybe there's a way that they do get out of it. If things continue to go badly legally, maybe they do. So it's going to be interesting. It's ugly. It's murky. However, him being a local guy, it's going to continue to be talked about.
Yeah, and as a Clemson fan, it's got to be hard to listen to. And the texter brings this up. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty in this country? You're absolutely right, Texter. You're absolutely right. But also, we have the right to talk it out and to try to understand. I mean, what do you want? Do you want us to not talk about the biggest breaking stories going on in sports? Do you want us to say, well, let's say we're in 2027 and this finally gets adjudicated. Hey, guys, you remember back in 2024 when this happened? Yeah, it was a nothing burger. Like, come on, guy. Like, you know what this is? This is talk radio. We share opinions about things.
That is what we do. All right. The Fan Upstate High School Player of the Week is racking up the offers. Where will he be this Saturday? Whose game will he be at? That and more next on the Fan Upstate. Today, we bring on the Fan Upstate High School Player of the Week, and this week's High School Player of the Week from Mountain View Prep, Jaylin McGill, 18 carries, 174 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a win over St. Joe's on Friday. He also had 9 receptions for 162 yards. Jaylin, we appreciate you hopping on with us, man. Talk about that performance on Friday, and it just felt like you were in the zone on Friday night.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all for having me on this interview. It's not even about me. It's about my team at the end of the day. I thank the O-line. I thank the receivers for blocking when I caught the ball out of the backfield. I appreciate Coach for setting up a good game plan, getting me out wide, getting me in the inside, just moving me around. So I thank the coaches, the O-line, and the rest of my teammates.
Jaylin McGill from Mountain View Prep, our wire-to-wire high school player of the week. Jaylin, describe that feeling when you're in a game where you're rolling, right? Everything is going your way. What is it like? They say the game slows down once you get comfortable in a system. Is that true? And how really does that get enhanced in a game that you're obviously finding a lot of success?
It's like you get this feeling like it takes getting the ball a couple of times. Like I have to get the ball a couple of times to get rolling, and then by the time I get the ball about a couple of times and I'm warm, and then I can really feel myself getting into it. But I wasn't really in my groove on Friday night. The dog haven't came out yet, so.
Wasn't really in your groove,
Wow.
Jaylin. You're a humble kid. 18 carries, 174 yards, and 4 touchdowns, plus 9 receptions, and 162 yards receiving. I like your humbleness, but you had a pretty good night Friday. Hey, let me ask you, how special is it for you to be able to impact the game as well as you have done this year in Mountain View's first season? You know, a lot of people not really sure who Mountain View is. When you guys go play teams, you get to really show them with all the talent that you guys have. How special is that?
Man, it's just good, man, having everybody around me, the coaches and the teammates. It's not even just about me, man. It's not even about the game, like off the field. We had 10, maybe 20 players get saved this year. We had a couple players get baptized, and that's the things that's really important to me, people that choose faith, and I'm a strong faith believer in God. So we impact the game. We prepare good Monday through Thursday, but I take more things importantly off the field.
Jaylin McGill of Mountain View Prep, our high school player of the week here on Wire to Wire, joins us on the Fan Upstate. Jaylin, I know you're set to come out in the class of 2026, and you're being recruited by a who's who. I mean, everybody is coming after you. But we can tell, obviously, with your last answer, you're a very humble guy. I mean, a lot of these places, they all have beautiful locker rooms, right? They're going to have your name in the lights in your locker. They're going to have state-of-the-art weight room facilities. So in your mind, what is going to differentiate, for example, an Alabama from a Clemson, from a Florida State, from a Georgia? What can they do to ultimately affect your decision?
The relationships. I would like to have a good relationship with everybody on the coaching staff, and like they tell you you want to go to a school with a good head coach and stuff like that, but you really gonna be seeing your position coach every day. So it's just the relationships for me.
Jaylin, what kind of goals do you and your team at Mountain View Prep have this season in your inaugural season?
To win, man, to win. And for me, my goal is to lead. I lead every day. Play for God. We play for God. Give God all the glory.
Appreciate you. That's Jaylin McGill, the Wire to Wire High School Player of the Week. Looking good in those unis, man. As soon as I saw him, I said, man, those things look sharp. Whoever decided on the colors, on the scheme of that uniform, man, they did a fantastic job. We appreciate your time, and I know you guys are trying to scramble and figure out exactly when you're going to even play this week, as we got a lot of weather coming our way. Cole Bryson going to have to do some figuring out of his own, but we appreciate your time, and good luck whether you play on Thursday night or Friday night.
Thanks, buddy.
So thank you.
That's Jaylin McGill. Fantastic interview. Again, running back, Mountain View Prep. He has totaled up the offers, 22 plus different schools right now looking at this guy, and he's fantastic. Really good interview. Yeah. And you said it, Diesel. humble.
Everybody coming after him. He is going to be a highly sought after guy, and you can tell just that smart, respectful, well-spoken, humble young guy. And I'm telling you, whoever gets him is going to get themselves a really, really good running back. When we come back, Cole, let's look at the rookie quarterbacks in their first week in the NFL and see who's playing more like BY and who's playing more like CJ.
Ooh.
That's next on the Fan Upstate. One full week of NFL football in the books, Cole. And only one of the rookies that came out of this NFL draft class actually won their first game as a rookie. And that would be Caleb Williams. Now, granted, Caleb Williams didn't do a damn thing to win that football game.
He sure did.
He didn't. But hey, it's going to go down as a W on his resume, right?
First win ever.
It's going to go down. Yeah, I know. A lot of Tennessee. We had a Tennessee Titan fan text into the show yesterday and say, how the hell did my team lose to that Chicago Bears team? But
true.
3 of the big-time rookies, Cole, that we spent a lot of time breaking down heading into the NFL draft this year got their start. And the question is, which of them played more like CJ and which of them played more like BY? That's like kind of a way too early. Which way are they going to go? Not just for the rest of the season, maybe for their careers. Because there's always that guy who's up at the tippy top, who was drafted highly, who ends up busting. So take a look. Caleb Williams got a dub in his first game as an NFL quarterback versus the Tennessee Titans, 24-17, the final score in that game. Caleb Williams, 14 of 29 for just 93 yards and a 3.2 yard per reception average. Flat out awful through the air. He rushed the ball 5 times, picked up 15 yards, awful on the ground. And we thought the Chicago Bears were a little farther along than this, right? I mean, the Chicago Bears have spent the last 2 or 3 seasons building up pieces, putting them together, hoping that this is going to be the system that is ready for Caleb Williams to walk right into and be elite. And he was anything but in his very first performance.
You know, it's weird how football works, right? Like I heard a guy, I used to listen to a guy in Texas, and I still do very frequently, but he's on also a CBS affiliate out there and used to be an executive with the Green Bay Packers, one of the Dallas Cowboys. And one thing that he always says, Diesel, is he always says the NFL is a strange lady, right? And he says that, and he's true. He's right. What he says is true, because you look at situations like this where the Bears win 24-17, right? Like Chicago, the Caleb Williams experiment, they won. 6 weeks from now, nobody will remember that he had a QBR of 23.5, right? However, the reason he's right, the NFL is a strange lady. I don't know how you can go 14 of 29 for 93 yards. In your debut of an NFL quarterback, Diesel, you don't throw for 100 yards, not even 100 yards. Your average yards per completion is 3.2. I have no idea.
To be fair, there were games last year where Bryce Young didn't throw for 100 yards.
And they lost.
And they lost.
That's the difference, right?
This football's an incredible game.
It is. It's weird. It's a strange. This game should not have been close. Will Levis wasn't good either. He threw more interceptions than he threw touchdowns. So, to answer your question, look at these rookie quarterbacks and decide where they're going from here.
Got to put them in a bucket. I mean, people all over the country are already putting these guys into buckets, right?
Well,
they're putting them in the bust bucket, or they're going to be great bucket.
The bucket, I would say, to look at Caleb Williams, I would say there's nothing you've seen yet that allows you to really put a true evaluation on what they will be.
Yeah, but I'm asking you to do it anyway.
Not good. Not good. Where's the not good bucket?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
are the bucket choices?
That's the Bryce Young bucket. The
Yeah, I mean,
CJ bucket
good.
or the Bryce Young bucket.
Well, did it have to be the Bryce Young?
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad to say because the Bears are a lot better team than the Titans on paper. Like, you know, Tony Pollard had a good day, former Dallas Cowboy for the Titans, and you know, he's tough to defend, but the Bears have DeAndre Swift and DJ Moore, man.
Yeah,
you know,
they got weapons for
They've got weapons, and Keenan Allen, like, what the heck? Caleb Williams, I'll tell you this. Today, if you're asking me today, I'll put him in the Bryce Young bucket, but I don't think he'll stay in that bucket long. Again, will he come out and throw for 350 yards next week? I don't think so. However, it's kind of like David Newton told us a few weeks ago when we were talking to him, you know, when you're this bad, the only place you can go is up, right? And right now, the only place Caleb Williams can go is up. 93 yards, 0 touchdowns, a QBR of 23.5. I put him in the Bryce Young bucket, but I don't think he'll stay there long.
Well, you said earlier that nothing we've seen so far gives us a good picture of where he's going to be as a quarterback. I say the exact opposite. I think everything we've seen so far puts him squarely in the bust bucket, in the
Caleb
Bryce
Williams?
Young bucket. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's a mentality thing. It's a mindset issue. I mean, sure, it's ridiculous hyperbole to say he's going to suck as an NFL quarterback because he had a lackluster first performance as a rookie. I mean, that is an unbelievable level of pressure. However, everything we've been told, not told, but sold, everything they've tried to sell us on Caleb Williams, it is that he is NFL ready right out of the gate, is that he is going to be this elite electric quarterback in the NFL. But then he has a horrible last year at Southern Cal. And then his attitude gets sour and nasty. And then he refuses to show up for meetings. And then he refuses to go work out for teams. And then he refuses to go to the combine. Look, he might be a fine teammate now that he's in the NFL, now that he's in Chicago, now that he's finally got what he wants. Now that Caleb Williams finally has been given everything he wants, he's willing to go out there and try.
Yeah.
Bag that. I mean, that is a person who right there is a selfish individual and will never go anywhere in this league.
Well, I'll disagree. I can't say that after one game. And look, we'll find out, right? The NFL, you're going to find out who you are very quickly. These are the best at every single position. They didn't have the best test in the world with Tennessee to open the season. Tennessee's not a bad team, but at the end of the day, they're not a great team. They'll go on Sunday Night Football, Diesel. They'll go in week 2 next week. They'll go and find out how good they are when they play C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, a very good coaching staff. So, look, to your point about you think he's going to be a bust, 3 weeks from now, add 3 more, 6 weeks from now, if we haven't seen improvement, yeah, I'll say that. Like Bryce Young, we've seen a whole year and 1 game. Caleb Williams, 1 game, for me, in my opinion, isn't enough to call him a bust yet.
Frank Wagner gets his upset pick in. Frank, you got to wait until tomorrow at 4:00. We open up the upset picks challenge at 4:00 on Wednesdays. So hold that one and send it back in.
I texted Frank
tomorrow.
back and said a day too early.
Yep. Texter says here that Caleb Williams is just a flamboyant Bryce Young. Wow. Wow. He also says Williams has 3 number 1 wide receivers. No excuses for him. Biggest, I don't know what this word is. It's misspelled, typo, don't know what. Biggest bust in the last 20 years, says the texter.
Gallo bust? You don't know what that is?
I don't know what a Gallo. I don't know what a Gallo bust is.
Look, 3 number 1 receivers. I don't know that I can agree with that. He's got really good talent around him. But again, texter, 3 number 1 receivers. That's saying like CeeDee Lamb, you talk about other ones out there in the league. I don't think the guys he have or the guys that he has currently are all 3 ones. To your point, he's got talent. He's got to be better. And I could be wrong, Diesel, but I think he will be better.
So we've only got 1 bit of sample size, 1 data point on all of these guys, but who cares? We're going hyperbole machine here today.
React.
Are they going to be a bust? Or they one day get a bust in Canton? That's ultimately what we're trying to guess here on the show. How about Jaden Daniels, who lost in his very first performance?
He did.
Versus the Buccaneers, 37-20. Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker looks great, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Jaden Daniels and what he was able to accomplish in his first game. 17 of 24 for 184. 7.7 yards of average, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but he was good on the ground. He carried the ball 16 times, picked up 88 yards, had a long scamper there for 17 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground for Jaden Daniels. I like Jaden a lot, and I think he's going to be very, very good.
No, I did too. I think we talked about it, when you and I talked about the draft leading up to it and after Washington selected him. We discussed Jaden Daniels, and we're both very high on him. And this new coaching staff, this new organization, look, they lost Sunday. They got beat pretty bad. I still think they're heading in the right direction. Jaden Daniels is the guy that you want leading. I believe that he has it right here. And for those of you that aren't watching, I'm pointing at my head. I think he has the football IQ down. Were his passing stats off the page? No, but they weren't terrible, right? He got sacked twice, a QBR 41.2, 184 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But you said it. He's a big-time threat on the ground. When you can be a threat and have 88 yards rushing. Now, the only concern that I would have with Jaden Daniels is, Diesel, kind of like we talked about with Lenora Sellers last week, I don't want Jaden Daniels carrying the football 16 times in the NFL, right? Like Jaden Daniels carried the football 16 times on Sunday.
It's scary.
It is. He's effective. Mm-hmm. He's really good, but this is the NFL.
Well, really, who does he have around him? What he was able to accomplish and do in his first game with the Commanders is really impressive, considering outside of tight end Zach Ertz, the no names that he's got around him. Olamide, Zacchaeus, Luke McCaffrey, Taron McLaurin. I never heard of these guys.
Good. He's good. Look, Austin Eckler's going to have to be better. I think Austin Eckler's their one. Do they have the best receiver room? No. However, they've got to be better up front as well. Tyler Biotic, who came over from Dallas to Washington in the offseason, he's got to be better. They've got to protect him better in pass protection. I think defensively, Washington in the past few years, Diesel, they've had as nasty as a defensive front as anybody. But here's the problem. When you talk about Jaden Daniels and winning games, he can't win games if his defense is giving up 37 points.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't give 37 points. You made Mayfield look like Baker Mahomes, and that's not good. So I think Jaden Daniels will be fine, but boy, you're right. He don't have the best team around him.
Texter said Jaden Daniels will be the next Lamar Jackson, except he will win a Super Bowl. That comes from Notre Dame Nate.
Wow.
Appreciate you,
bold.
Nate. And then the last and third rookie that started this week, Bo Nix. He lost with his Denver Broncos to the Seattle Seahawks, 26-20. 0 touchdowns, threw for 138 in the air. A whole bunch of those went to the other team, though, because he threw 2 picks in that game. 5 carries, 35 yards on the ground, had a good scamper. Bo Nix, will he be a bust or will he get a bust?
You know what? I like Bo Nix. And this, I think, is the toughest of the 3, Diesel. I really do. I think this is the toughest of the 3 that you put on between Nix, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. He threw the ball a ton on Sunday.
42 pass attempts.
He threw a ton. No touchdowns. Didn't have a good quarterback rating or a good QBR.
He had more completions than Jaden Daniels had attempts.
That's what I'm saying. Look, they've got – and here's the reality of it. We judge quarterbacks. The reality is we judge quarterbacks based on their performance. Deservingly so. However, it is so critical for us to remember football is the one true team game. If you don't have a rush, if you don't have an offensive line, I don't care if you have Patrick Mahomes or Troy Aikman back there, you're not going to get it. Bo Nix can't be your leading rusher, Diesel. I mean, what world are we living in where Bo Nix is the guy who has 5 carries for 35 yards? Their offensive line's terrible. The running game's terrible. They have no true RB1s out there, no running backs. I like Bo Nix, but again, we said it in April, May, June. These guys are good quarterbacks, but where they land, the situation they find themselves is super important, and I don't love the situation that Bo Nix has found himself in.
So 3 rookie quarterbacks didn't play this week, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. Now, we're in a tough situation with these 3 guys because I want to ask, who will be the last one to start? Of Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. The hard thing for Drake is that the Patriots won a football game. Jacoby Brissett looked, well, not like a guy who's been in the league a while should look, but ultimately he got his team to a win. So that's tough to say that Drake May is going to get the start there. J.J. McCarthy, he's got Sam Darnold in front of him, who all of a sudden looks like a competent, good quarterback in Minnesota. And then obviously we know Michael Penix and the big time contract that the quarterback ahead of him has there. So ultimately who is going to be the last one of those 3 to start? Kirk Cousins, by the way, couldn't pull it out of the
That's tough to say. And the J.J. McCarthy injury, that just throws a wrench in everything, right? How's he gonna come back? How's he gonna recover from that injury? Jacoby Brissett won a football game on Sunday with the Patriots. They beat a good team in Joe Burrow and the Bengals. That's a tough question. Between the three, Drake, JJ, and Michael Penix, boy, you would have to say that Michael's going to be the last one to start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, JJ, if he wasn't hurt, I think he'd be playing right now. Drake may. I don't know how long Jacoby will be the guy in New England. Probably not long.
I think of those three, Drake probably plays first. And apologies there, I wasn't aware of the JJ McCarthy injury, but Drake, I think all healthy, Drake would have played first, because I think Jacoby Brissett is not going to be anyone's long-term solution to a problem.
Sure.
I mean, they're keeping him out there as long as it takes to get Drake ready to go out and play. And I mean, do we really trust Sam Darnold to sustain?
Hey,
no.
Jacoby Brissett's 31 years old. I mean, he's for a quarterback getting up there, right?
Getting up there. But Michael Penix, I mean, we saw Kirk Cousins looks awful. He looked awful.
Awful.
I mean, do you sit the guy who's got the big fat contract for the rookie?
Are you asking me? Because yeah I mean, absolutely. Look, the head coach, the NFL is such an interesting. It has such an interesting hierarchy, right? Like the head coach's job, Diesel, it's to win. The front office, they're the idiots for signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year extension worth $800 billion, right? The head coach, it's not his fault. You're right. He looked horrible. But if your goal is to win games, and I think I said this yesterday, if Michael Penix Diesel keeps trotting out here or Kirk Cousins keeps trotting out here and getting slack,
you got no choice.
Well, you have no choice.
Yeah.
That is the most, I'll tell you, I think that's the most fascinating storyline in the NFL. I mean, it really is. I mean, this guy, Michael Penix, man, you got to feel bad for him, don't you?
You do. and okay, so here's that's my screw up for not knowing about JJ McCarthy's injury, especially because it was like a month ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. So, all right. So here's the real question. As JJ McCarthy recovers and should be ready to come back to the team towards the end of the season, maybe, able to play next season.
Yeah.
Michael Penix, he's got Kirk Cousins in front of him. Which of those two will actually become the starter, not just start, but become the starter first?
I think
now we're projecting a year down the road.
Yeah, I think it would be McCarthy. Here's the problem. If you told me that Atlanta this year, Diesel, that Atlanta doesn't win that horrible division, right? If they don't win the division and they don't make the playoffs, you're telling me you're trotting Kirk Cousins back out there again next year and we're going to run it back?
You're going to try to 37-year-old Kirk Cousins out there?
So
even though you're paying him, I mean, he'll be the highest paid backup in the league.
Right. And the ownership should fire themselves for doing that, or for whoever it was. It's so fascinating because I think Michael Penix will start before we think. Like, I don't think there's any way in the world that Kirk Cousins plays out his contract. He'll have to retire, or just somebody tells him, hey, go, kick rocks or whatever. Yeah. He's just not good. And he's too old, Diesel. That's the problem.
Texter says Michael Penix will start before Drake May. Wow,
that is
big. As though Penix will have the better NFL career of the three.
He could. I like Mike. I mean, who doesn't like Michael Penix? Well, I mean, he's super talented.
I mean, the crazy thing is, we're talking about Kirk Cousins being 36. What is Michael Penix, like 27? He's old already, and he's a rookie.
That's bad.
Yeah,
that's bad. But I don't know.
He's already got gray in his beard.
He's got to see the field, and I don't know.
Yeah.
They have I believe they've handcuffed themselves in a way.
And the Falcons are hoping beyond hope that that Kirk Cousins has a good season and they can ship him off somewhere else. Somebody else who needs. I mean, heck, the Carolina Panthers need a quarterback next year. They might need a serviceable veteran.
That's rough.
That might be. They may have to do something crazy and bring in a 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, give him another contract.
He'll be the richest guy ever. He'll be the smartest guy in the world for how he's acquiring these contracts.
Being a backup in the NFL is a hell of a career.
It is. It really, and a fired football coach. I'd love to be a fired football coach one day when I grow. Who feels more confident about their team? Diesel Atolo Madcraft brought this up yesterday, and it was a good question. Sometimes our Tolos really hit on these things, man. They ask good questions, so good that we're going to bring it to the table. Madcraft asked yesterday, who feels more confident in their team right now, South Carolina fans or Clemson fans? Your reactions, your thoughts, and more next. is more confident? I want to know, and I want to know the truth right now. Where's your confidence level at, South Carolina fans? Where's your confidence level at, Clemson Tigers, after hanging 66 points over the weekend?
Don't bring it up.
I'm sorry, that's sore subject. That was my fault.
It's tough.
South Carolina's defense looked really good. They go on the road, get a big SEC win. Both teams in the Palmetto State had a good weekend. Boy, does it make things around here more peaceful, Diesel. The callers are a little bit, more lighthearted.
Everybody's a winner.
No, everybody's a winner. Nobody's mad. Dewey's okay. Nobody's on life alert, panic alert. It's all good in the hood right now. However, things could change quickly. LSU's a different animal, but right now, we're talking about right now.
Feel good. Savor this feeling right now.
You
Gamecock
should, man.
fans, because it may be different come 3:30 Saturday afternoon.
You should. The best thing you could hope for is that system that's coming through to move the game, and LSU gets all screwed up. Not to get on a side note, but a couple of years ago, maybe it's been 5 or 6 years ago, I went to a LSU South Carolina football game on a Sunday morning. Can you believe? Think about that. It was
that a
the
hurricane game?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because, the hurricane hit down there, so they flew here to play. And, Sunday, weirdest thing in the world, but it was a Sunday morning game. Anyways, I asked the question leading into the break. Madcraft brought this up yesterday. Who feels more confident in their team, South Carolina Gamecock fans or Clemson fans? Diesel, if you had to put a pulse, you and I have been hosting together now since March. You know how Clemson fans are. You know how South Carolina fans are. If you had to put a pulse on it, throw your best dart at the board, what fan base feels more confident right now?
Clemson.
Ooh.
I think Clemson feels more confident right now. Clemson got shellacked in week 1, and they shellacked an opponent in week 2. But what Clemson fans saw last week, they believe, at least to this point, that is Garrett Riley finally opening up this offense, that Cade Klubnik regaining his confidence, that they're finally using their full complement of weapons, which are a bunch of young wide receivers. And we saw a bunch of young, talented guys like Sammy Brown on the defensive side of the football out there making big plays. I think Clemson fans feel like they've finally turned the corner on Cade Klubnik. They finally saw that performance.
Yep.
The one that you were all told and they were all sold was in him week in and week out. You finally got it, and they hope that this is the thing that breaks open the floodgates, and now all of a sudden Cade Klubnik's going to be dropping dimes all over the ACC.
No, you're right in terms of Cade Klubnik and what Clemson fans were sold, right? This was a game that Clemson fans, to your point, Diesel, they've been looking for a long time. Now, when you talk about the confidence for Clemson fans, I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier today who was a Clemson fan, and him and I talk almost every day. Big Clemson fan. And, I love gauging, Diesel, the pulse, the thoughts on friends of mine who are Clemson and South Carolina fans, just to get a feeling of where their head's at, right? And it's so funny, it's so fascinating with Clemson this week, because you're right. They looked incredible Saturday night. You should feel confident. However, how as a fan do you compartmentalize what you saw Saturday versus what you saw 2 Saturdays ago? Because you have to feel good about Cade. You have to feel good about the offense. But at the same time, your confidence, is it a right now confidence or is it a big picture confidence? I'd argue that right now confidence, Clemson has more. But big picture wise, Clemson fans, do you really have big picture confidence?
Well, it's just hard to say. I mean, you have 2 data points against 2 vastly different types of football teams, and now you have a week off, and you don't play NC State until September 21st. So you're going up against a team that at least was a top 25 team before they got absolutely curb stomped American History X style by Tennessee. And so you're going up against your closest analogous to your level of talent that you've seen so far. I mean, clearly, judging by the final score of the Georgia game, Georgia just has more talent than you.
Sure.
Whether it's, offense, defense, special teams, coaching staff, scheme, all of it, right? Across the board, Georgia has more talent than Clemson has. And then Clemson showed the exact opposite against App State. They have more talent across the board in every phase of the game. Even up there in the booth, they got more talent. So NC
Talking
State,
about me and you.
yeah, exactly. I have talent.
I
My
thought
mom
you were
said
talking
so.
about our talent. You were in the booth.
But NC State should fall somewhere right in between the two, right?
Yeah.
It's an ACC caliber team with ACC caliber recruits. And so what you do 2 weeks from now, you're going to have 2 weeks to think about it. And I caution Clemson fans from using that 2 weeks to get too high on your own supply.
No, it's a good point. I'll say this. NC State does fall somewhere in the middle, in my opinion, between Georgia and App State. Now, what South Carolina did Saturday, going on the road, if you're a Gamecock fan, look, should you feel confident? Yes. However, the Gamecock fans that I've talked to in the past few days, Diesel, who are good friends of mine who love South Carolina football, they're excited about the win. They liked what they saw. However, I'll tell you this. You're a victim of your circumstances, right? South Carolina's in the Southeastern Conference. They know what lies ahead. They know how brutal this schedule's about to get, right? And that's I think Clemson fans have more confidence because they know, let's just call a spade here. Diesel Clemson knows they can go in the Cupcake Conference and win 10 games. Yeah. South Carolina knows that in 3 weeks, they're going to play Ole Miss, Bama. It's brutal. So are they confident? Yeah, I don't think they're as confident as Clemson is, though.
Did you ever see the movie Back to the Future? I think it was 3, the one that was set in the Wild West. Well, you're familiar with Back to the Future, right? Where you got a car, you got to get it up to 88 miles an hour. Sure. And when that happens, sparks fly and you go into the future or you go into the past. Well, there's a scene where they've got the car on railroad tracks, and they've got to get it up to 88 miles an hour and then get to this bridge that, as of in the time of the movie in the Wild West, the bridge is out. And they don't know if by the time they get there, they're going to be up to speed and the bridge is still going to be there. And that's kind of where South Carolina fans are. You have gunned that thing up to 88, right? You're feeling really good about yourself after dominating a Kentucky program that for a while there had your number. And look, we all believe that South Carolina is a superior football program, or at least should be a superior football program to Kentucky. I mean, it's the football team at a basketball school,
That's
right? And for a while there, Kentucky was dominating you. They were kicking your ass. Well, now you've got 3 in a row against Kentucky, and it feels as if you've rounded that corner against a team that you are also very close to being on equal footing with. So you feel like you're pushing past a Kentucky type of program, and now you have that next program in front of you that you want to try to attack. So if you're good enough to consistently beat Kentucky, now you go after, well, the problem is you don't know who your schedule is going to be every year. Thanks a lot, SEC, for going divisionless. But now you look at it and say, okay, who's our next target in front of us? Texas A&M. That's a program that, for all intents and purposes, is ahead of where we are as a football program. They've got fantastic facilities, and they've got more money than they know what to do with, right? And that's just more resources than what South Carolina has available. And you have an opportunity a couple weeks from now to prove that you're a better football team and a better football program than Texas A&M. So that ultimately should be the next goal. The problem is you got to get through a bunch of really tough ranked SEC teams before you get there. And College Game Day on Saturday is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to watch it on TV. Won't be able to go because it's celebrating my wife's birthday. Otherwise, I'd drive down to Columbia and be there for College Game Day.
They're expecting some serious storms now in Columbia.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the weather.
Hopefully it changes.
Maybe they'll move it into the Colonial Life
There
Arena,
you go.
right?
Move the game inside and
no, just move College Game Day into the arena and let people have an absolute. I mean, if the College Game Day picker is going to be Dawn Staley, why not have the
her house
inside of her house anyway, right?
All right, let's go to the text line. A couple of good thoughts on the text line. Texter from the 828 says, after Clemson destroyed Upstate, I think he means App State, pretty close though, one letter. I would say that Clemson fans are high on the hog currently. I would say that the win gave them more confidence in, let's see, let me click on the text, confidence in the illusion of how good their team will be. Texter says Clemson should handle NC State. 344 says cautiously optimistic is the best way to describe Gamecock fans' confidence. We know we may have an inconsistent trait to our team, so I'm worried. I don't push back there, Texter. The only thing I'd say is you're worried because you play in the SEC. You're worried because you know that those areas that you're concerned about, they'll get exposed when you play those good teams, right? If you had those areas of concern in the ACC, it might not be as big of a concern. Tiger Pal Rachel on the text line. She asked the question, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Tiger Pal Rachel says, do you guys think we keep seeing the creative offense from Clemson?
Well, you would hope so.
How do you go back, right?
You can't go back.
How do you not? Look, okay, let me say this. Whatever it was, whether it was Riley really running the offense or the players showing up and everybody being, whatever it was that allowed the offense to execute and perform as well as they did on Saturday, yeah, you can't not say, like Tiger Pal Rachel, not being here, but the goal is to win. The goal is to score points every drive. I don't know why the creative offense hasn't been there. So to answer your question, absolutely 100%. They need to keep showing that creative offense, and I think they will.
I mean, you couldn't convince anyone anywhere that Clemson was purposefully keeping it vanilla against Georgia so that they could bust out the creative offense against App State.
You can't convince me of that.
That's not reality. So, I mean, unless they just overhauled what they were doing between week 1 to week 2. Is it possible that Clemson tried to run that creative offense against Georgia and Georgia just said, you're not doing that against us?
Well, so
when you're playing against somebody who has superior defensive players and potentially, obviously a superior defensive scheme, it's just hard to look creative against a team like that's figured out what you're doing. It's easy to look superior against a team that you outclass in every phase of the football game.
That's right. I say it all the time, and people get offended because they take offense. Fans are going to be fans. However, I say it all the time, Tiger Pal Rachel. Who you plays or who you play and who lines up across from you, it matters. I can have the greatest game plan in the world, Diesel. I can have the best offensive scheme and game plan against Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I can have that same game plan against Wofford. Well, guess what? It's going to look a lot better. I'm going to look a lot smarter and like a better coach against Wofford than I am against Georgia. We have to put a lot of stock into who you play matters. Georgia's a very good team. Clemson offensively, that game, they were not a very good team offensively.
Well, in this game and in this business, coaches are going to be judged based off of how you looked against the best opponents that you played.
Absolutely.
I mean, Clemson will always be judged on what happens in their out-of-conference games against Georgia, against South Carolina, and in the college football playoff because that's the best opponent. Those are the best opponents they're going to play all year. Dabo wants to be judged off of his 10-win seasons, which that's him judging himself based on playing Wake Forest and Duke and Syracuse and Georgia Tech. But the vast majority of college football fans are judging Dabo based on what he does against Georgia and Auburn and Tennessee when he has the opportunity to play those types of schools.
And real quick, I want to go to what Ayatollah said on the YouTube stream. He said, Clemson fans seem to be getting spoken for a lot while I've yet to hear from a Clemson fan that's actually confident. Well, I'll just tell you this. Go talk to any Clemson fan. I'm not trying to be a you-know-what, but every Clemson fan that I've talked to in the past 4 days or since Saturday, they're uber confident. They're overconfident. Every Clemson – are you talking to Clemson fans? Because everyone I've talked to is super confident from what they've seen. Wesley Roberts, confident Clemson fan right here. How can you not be confident, right?
When we come back, Cole, let's take a look around the sports world, see what's happening out there. Our Daily Wires are next. It's a busy day in sports, Cole. Lot to get to on our daily wires.
Oh, didn't have a mic on. Gotta have the mic on.
False start.
Oh, I'm
on
the worst.
On the host.
You know what? Let me try this instead. I'm no good anyways. I suck at my job. I'm like Deshaun Watson.
This is the buzz around the sports world. The Atlanta Braves lost yesterday to the Cincinnati Reds by a score of 1-0. Man, what an offensive output from the Braves.
Oh, man.
They're in Washington today for the 6:45 first pitch.
You know, I think they've given up.
Yeah?
Like, I think they've checked out. No, I really do. I think they've checked out. I think they're done.
No way.
The Mets are playing so good.
Have the Mets pulled free of them now?
The Mets win last night. If the Mets won last night, the answer would be yes. But did the Mets win last night is the question. I just think the Atlanta Braves are just toast. Like, let's see, Monday night. Sorry for Mets won.
Oh, so now the Braves are in third place in the division.
That's right. Yep.
Yeesh. Tennis legend Billie Jean King wants to carve a pathway for women in Major League Baseball. Billie Jean King is a minority owner of the Dodgers. She said she grew up and it crushed her that she couldn't be a Major League Baseball player. She's producing a film that will air between games 2 and 3 of the World Series, highlighting girls and women in baseball around the world. Do you want women in baseball?
Doing what?
Yeah. I mean,
you're
going to have to change. I mean, you got to get used to different kind of, not to say somebody can't, anybody can't, but you're getting used to new equipment. You're getting used to a different size ball that you're both trying to hit and throw.
Isn't that
you're
why
getting
we
used
have...
to new dimensions of the field. You're getting used to somebody throwing the ball a lot faster. I'm sorry. I mean, and I know they say that a 75-mile-an-hour fastball in softball is technically harder to hit than a 99-mile-an-hour fastball in baseball because you've got less time to see the ball coming at you to figure out the pitch.
Just play softball.
Just play softball.
Yeah.
Come on. I understand, Billie Jean King, it's your life's work to break down gender barriers, but come on. Why don't we just blow up in a good way women's softball and make a professional women's softball league that people actually want to pay attention to? A new civil lawsuit has been filed in Houston accusing Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson of sexual assault and battery in October of 2020 when he was a member of the Houston Texans. 4 ex-Michigan players, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on the show, including former quarterback Denard Robinson and wide receiver Braylon Edwards, have filed a class action lawsuit against the NCAA and Big Ten Network, seeking more than $50 million for being wrongfully and unlawfully denied the opportunity to earn money off their name, image, and likeness. Tyreek Hill's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, is calling for the officers who pulled Tyreek over to be fired. Footage, if you haven't seen this video yet, we can't show you the video, obviously, because we're in an audio medium, but here's the audio, Cole, of Tyreek and his interaction with the first police officer. This is the first half of a very, very ugly situation. And that's the sound of his Corvette.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that's the sound of his Corvette engine running off the police body cam. Okay, so the audio there is a little bit muffled, but Tyreek rolls his window down. The officer asks for his license. Tyreek gives him something and then rolls the window back up on him. And very, very dark tinted windows in Tyreek's car. And the officer's like, whoa, roll your window back down. And he's knocking on his window. Tyreek is not a stupid person. He understands. Everybody understands when you're being pulled over. And I'm not blaming Tyreek for this. I'm not blaming the officers. I'm just telling you what everybody understands. When you get pulled over, you give the officer your license and registration and you sit there with the window open. You don't roll the window back up. That is immediately telling the officer that you're a combative suspect, that you are somebody who is going to give this officer a hard time. So,
and again, I have thoughts on it. Maybe we can get to it. Maybe we can slip it in a segment here in the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock hour. Yeah. But it's a tough situation on both sides.
So here's the second half of that encounter.
Hey, keep your window down. Hey, keep your window down. Keep your window down. I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Give me that. Get out of the car. Give me that. Break that freaking window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out! What part of law don't you understand? Hey, Drew, I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. Drew.
So what you didn't see by just listening to the audio is the officer got his information. Tyreek rolled his window up on him.
Yeah.
The officer says, roll down your window, because it's a very, very dark tinted window. An officer doesn't know if a suspect on the other side of that window is prepping a weapon, a gun, a knife, whatever. Has no idea what this suspect is trying to do. And then when he tells him to roll his window down, he doesn't roll it down. He tells him again, he doesn't roll it down. He says, get out of the car. He sits in the car. He says again, get out of the car. Sits in the car. And he says, okay, well, if you're not going to get out of the car, I'll take you out of the car. And that's when it got excessive. So we're gonna dive into this later, because this is a really fascinating story.
It is a lot of thoughts, and I'm sure our Tolos, they might have a couple
of
two
opinions.
thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, we have our 5 o'clock segments for football season set. We loved what we tried last week, and it is time, Tolos, for you to get those phones out. As long as you're not driving, do it safely. Get those phones out, dial us up. It is time for the Tolo Takeover next. Is it Deion Sanders in Colorado? Is it Tyreek Hill? Is it South Carolina Gamecocks football? Is it Clemson football? What am I talking about? I'm just giving you a few pieces of ammunition, a few pieces that you can put in your belt, have ready for the Tolo takeover, which is happening, I don't know, right now. If you're just tuning in and you're asking yourself, Diesel, what's the Tolo takeover? I'm not sure. I didn't hear this last week. We got a lot of good feedback, and I want to let you know, Tolo takeover, well, you're the Tolos. It stands for turn it on, leave it on. That's what we ask you to do each and every day on this show. It's your chance to take over for a segment. You can call into the show, discuss whatever you want to talk about, sound off like you got a pair, keep it, PG-13, right? Somewhat.
Well, if you're going to say anything, just don't say so many things that Cole can't turn around and hit the dump
That's
button
right. Shane Barrett.
to clear you off the air.
Yep. My arms don't reach that far. So it is your chance to sound off. And I say sound off like you gotta. Come in strong, man. Like, if you're going to sound off, if you're going to take over, it better have some oomph, right? It better have some of that oomph where you come in strong.
It was Pat Benatar that said, hit me with your best shot.
That's right.
So hit us with your best shot.
All right, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Get in line. JD is on hold and is going to kick us off today on the Tolo Takeover. Tolo, JD, what do you got?
Hey, gentlemen, thank you for taking my call. Well, Cole, number one, you are absolutely right. You do have short arms and short legs. I apologize to say that, but I appreciate you guys doing this. I do as a Tolo, man. I appreciate you guys doing this, but that's enough of the pleasantries.
What you don't realize, JD, is that if Cole shaved his beard and dyed his hair blonde, he'd look just like Bobby Hill.
Yeah.
Well, hey, he might would be more famous if he did that.
Man, that'd be tough.
Man, I'm telling you what. Hey, let me come out strong. Put these pleasantries.
Yeah, you've been kind of weak sauce so far. Let's step it up. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, go get out of here. So first of all, I don't hear anybody giving Shedeur Sanders any smoke about walking off the field with 2 minutes left to play. He pulled a LeBron. All of a sudden, it's okay for them to do that. Now we can just walk off of the freaking court. We can walk off of the field and do whatever we want to do because our daddy is the coach or because our daddy is on the team. Man, parent your freaking children. And then secondly, my Panthers fandom is now up for sale. I have seen entirely too much talk about Carolina Panthers, and we're already talking about the draft next year. We're already talking about getting the number one pick. We're already talking about trading back and doing this and doing that. Man, y'all miss me with that crap. The Panthers, my fandom is for sale. I need a new team. I can't deal with it any longer. And now I'm going to wait for somebody to come and call me stupid after this call.
Well, you can't trade between divisions, JD. You're going to have to trade outside of the NFC entirely. Are you willing to go to an AFC team?
Yeah, you know what, man? Give me
Jacksonville.
No, I don't want to say the
Can I interest you in Miami?
Deshaun just putting that big blemish on the Texans. I would pick the Texans. I would pick the Jaguars, but they just suck. I mean, I don't know. I'm taking a shot at a few Tolos here. Hey, you know what? I'll join Madcraft. I'll root for the cheater and the Chargers.
Oh, God.
Oof. I feel like that was a low underhanded shot at Madcraft.
Yeah, that's a tough shot.
But I appreciate you, JD. Thanks for the phone call.
Thanks, JD. JD starting us off today. The Shedeur Sanders walking off the field. Look,
got a point. Got a point.
It's not a good look.
I mean, I don't know because I haven't seen the video of this particular incident happening. I would assume it didn't happen right in front of Deion because I would hope that Deion would snatch him up by his arm, turn around and say, stay right here with me. You're not leaving this team on this field. You do it. You will not start in game number 3.
Wouldn't you think that's how it should go? Supposed to go?
It should go that way. But I mean, who did we talk to earlier this week? He was talking about guys on these rosters, college kids who make more money than their position coaches, and they're throwing that at their faces.
I know.
Shut up. Screw you. I don't have to listen to you. I make more money than you.
So again, for JD's call, and by the way, phone lines are open, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. It is the Tolo takeover. A few texts, but texters, look, pick up the phone. Be a man about it and get your opinion.
Who's got the gabagools to call in?
That's right. JD's also said his fandom is for sale. I don't know, Diesel, how to feel about that.
Those of you who are a fan of other teams, what's your pitch to bring JD to your side? How about that? We got any Titans fans in the audience who want to make a pitch? Do we have any Dolphins fans who want to make a pitch? Commanders fans?
I'm telling you, that's
Where you
rough,
at?
isn't it? I mean, selling your fandom. That's a good question though. How low does it have to get for your NFL franchise, or hey, even college team, right? Even your college team. How low does it have to get to say, hey, I am for sale. My fandom is for sale. I'm willing to sell it, and I'm now on the market. I may be that way. We've talked about it. I may be that way in the NBA here in a few years, Diesel, but it's not my team. It's my player. When your team is that bad that your fandom's up for sale, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Do the Carolina Panthers, we need answers to this question. Could PSL owners sell their PSLs back to the team mid-season? Could you call up and say, screw you and this franchise, give me my money back? Could you do that?
You know what? You should be able to, but I don't believe you. I don't believe they'll let you.
No, probably not.
Texter, let's see, Fat Paid, Corn Chip on the text line. They're chiming in. 502 chimes in and says, tell JD to relax. Dave Canales talked to Dabo regarding strategy, decided to treat week one as precautionary. I mean, come on. As preseason, sorry, I read that wrong, and comes out week two and runs the table. There's no way, right? There's no way that's true.
How do we not see any improvement out of Bryce Young? Like, none whatsoever. I get that you're in a new system with a new coach and everything has changed from last year. I get that. You got a whole new complement of wide receivers outside of Adam Thielen, your safety valve. But like, how do you just overthrow two wide receivers on that first interception? That was just awful.
It's bad. It's about as bad as you can get. And look, the reality of it is there's only one way to go. And as bad as that was, like you've got to hope and pray as a Carolina Panthers fan that
first game
improvement. Yeah, improvement's going to come, but then you lose a guy like Derek Brown, and things just keep getting worse and worse. So, what do you say, Tolos? Look, last week when we did the Tolo takeover, I think we had 5 calls back to back lined up, and you guys loved it. We had somebody on the stream talking about how they loved the Tolo takeover. So far today, JD's the only one brave enough to actually make it happen and pick up the phone and sound off. The rest of you, it's pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, you can sound off about anything at all. There we go.
Anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the number out.
Go ahead.
844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And while you're getting this caller on the line, Cole, we had a bunch of Tolos early in the show going off on us, talking about this Deshaun Watson situation, all the same exact tried and true things we heard the last time around. Innocent until proven guilty. How come maybe people automatically trust the woman? Like all the same opinions that we heard the first time around when this happened a couple of years ago.
I'm with you. I like strong opinions. I like opinions that are yours, right? Come out with your opinion. 844-FAN-PHONE. Let's go to Ayatollah, who chimes in on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. What's up, man?
How we doing today, fellas?
Rock and roll, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Cole called me out a minute ago, so I figure I'm going to have to call into y'all.
Let's go, man. That's what
Are you calling to tell him which dumpster you want to meet him behind so you guys fight it out?
Listen, I ain't got the fists. I barely got the words, but I know I ain't got the fists. So I'll start with the phone call.
Let's do it, man. I like it. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Yeah, but absolutely. I mean, y'all said that a bunch of Clemson fans feel confident about this, and obviously I know plenty of them, and we feel hopeful. I think maybe there's a difference on, like, confidence to me makes me think, yeah, offense is figured out. We're about to rattle off a bunch of wins. I don't know anybody that's quite thinking that right now. They're hopeful that we saw it happen. But
you don't think in the
don't have a whole lot.
ACC, though, you can rattle? I mean, 66 points. That's my point. Like, if you were in the SEC, I'd agree with you. But in the ACC, man, with the schedule you have, you don't think Clemson can reel off, 9-10 wins this year?
Sure, maybe I can get a hold of some wins, but I mean, this is still the same team as last year, and we didn't look so pretty last year, and maybe something has been figured out, and I hope it has, but until it's proven against somebody, then, we can feel a little better about it.
There you go. That is Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, the owner of this certified, beautiful big flag folded up behind me. If you're watching on the stream, if I kind of lean over one direction or the other, you can see it. And I appreciate you bringing that by, my friend. Hopefully you'll let us hang on to it for a little bit longer.
Oh, absolutely, fellas. Y'all keep it hung up in there, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
Appreciate you, man. Absolutely. How about Ayatollah? I like it, man. I understand what he's saying. I understand that Clemson fans are not, the Clemson fans that he's talked to are still realistic. And then look, you and I ask Clemson fans all the time, and South Carolina fans too, Diesel. We ask fans to be realist, right? To understand what's happened, but also be realist. I get it, but I'm just saying in the ACC, I think there's room for 9 or 10 wins there.
Yep, could be. Let's go to Dale, who's up next. Dale's got something to say on today's Tolo Takeover. What you got, Dale?
Cole.
He's going right for you.
Why did Jerry give Dak so much freaking money?
I'll tell you why.
$60 million a year for 12 games in the regular season and a first-round exit. You've got to be kidding me. And it wasn't Dak that won the game against Cleveland. It was the defense. And Brandon Aubrey.
Dale, let me tell you, I'm glad you brought this up because I was wondering, I was curious to know your opinion. I know you're a Cowboys fan like I am. I think Dak Prescott 100% deserved it. What people don't realize is the Cowboys didn't set the quarterback market. Dak didn't set the quarterback market. Other quarterbacks that have gotten paid set the quarterback market. He's just next on the list. You have to pay him. What are you going to do, Dale? You're going to go get Sam Darnold?
Yeah, Cole, but you don't have to make him the highest paid quarterback ever.
Well, that's
not for what he's done.
That's not the way it has to go. That's the way it has
But that's
gone.
the way it's always been.
No. You could have paid him. What's the highest salary above his or below his? You could have paid him $40 million less than that over a course of 4 years. So $10 million.
But
less
it doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't happen that way.
Take less money.
But when you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're Jerry Jones, you have to use some friggin' common sense, shake your head, see if it rattles around in there, and say this guy is not worth being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
See, I think he is.
He's $10 million less than the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Listen to this, though. He won't be long, though.
Why do you believe Dak is worth that kind of money?
I believe Dak Prescott gives you a chance every single year to accomplish your goal. There's not another quarterback other than Patrick Mahomes and maybe Joe Burrow that gives you a chance every single year to accomplish your goal.
And what does he do every single year?
Hey, Dale, he didn't give up 48 points last year. The defense did, right?
No, correct, but he didn't do us any favors by throwing those picks.
Oh, he threw 2 picks. Josh Allen threw 6. Josh Allen threw 6 picks, and nobody says anything.
One of those was returned to the house. That killed any momentum we had because that was right before the half.
You gave up 48 points in last year's playoff game in the wild cards on Dak.
No, the defense didn't give all that up. Remember, Dak threw a pick 6.
Okay, sorry. 48 minus 6. That's what – you still gave up 40-plus points. Who else are you going to go get, Dale?
I'm telling you, listen, look, the window is you're not going to be able to re-sign Micah Parsons. It's how. How are you going to re-sign Micah Parsons after you've paid CeeDee Lamb and you've given Dak that an exorbitant contract? You're not.
Who's the most important position on the field, Dale?
It is the quarterback. But Dak is not built to be throwing the ball 40 times a game. He's not. He's proven that throughout his entire career. He is a 25 to 30 times an attempt a game guy, and that is when we are our most efficient.
But you don't have a run game, right? You don't have a run game this year.
then we become one-dimensional, and it's all on Dak, and he's going to do what he does, which is throw a pick in the most crucial moment that breaks our back.
Who would you take in the last question? Then I'll let you go. Last question. Who do you take right now in the NFL that to consistently give you a shot, other than you can't say Patrick Mahomes, but that gives you a consistent shot year in and year out?
There's probably 3.
Okay, so he's worth it then, because those three will then be the highest paid in 6 months from now.
Well, no, Joe Burrow just got his deal done.
Right, but I'm saying everybody freaks out when somebody becomes the highest paid quarterback, but it only lasts for like 6 months because then somebody else, the quarterback market sets the price. That won't be the highest paid for a long time.
But in my eyes, Joe Burrow has deserved it because he's done more. He's gone into Burrowhead. He's gone into Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes at his house. You realize that the only 2 quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes has lost to is Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. And I'm pretty sure one of those guys won 7 Super Bowls.
He did. I hear you. I just don't. I think football's a team game.
Burrow has proven that he's worth it. Dak to me has not. I couldn't. Man.
The last thing I'll say, I promise I'll shut up. Hey, the last thing I'll say, I promise I'll shut up. But the quarterback position in the NFL, it's all about what they have the potential to do. It's never been hey, pay this guy based on what he's done. It's always been pay the guy based on what he can do. It's always been that way.
Yes, and we gave Dak the first extension at 4 years, 160, coming off a broken ankle.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate the Tolo takeover. Dale's coming in strong today, man. That was good. All right, the last one for now. More. Daniel, is that right? What's up, Daniel?
Hey, CB.
What's up, Dan?
Hey, so here's some stats. In 2000, Jeff Garcia took over highest paid quarterback at $20 million for 2 years. He took that over Peyton Manning. Then Peyton Manning in 2012, and he went to Denver, became the highest paid quarterback at $20 million. So in 12 years, they doubled the salary. Here we are 12 years later from that, and we've now tripled the salary for quarterbacks. Now,
and the only way the NFL can get around this, Dan, is by having a separate salary cap just for quarterbacks, because nobody will tell these quarterbacks, no, we can't afford to pay you the amount of money that you want.
Yeah, no, and I see the previous caller's point. Should Dak be the highest paid quarterback right now? No, Patrick Mahomes should be.
But you know what's weird, DB? Like, I don't push back on that. I'm not that dumb. However, the best quarterback in the league, DB's never been the highest paid. Tom Brady was never the highest paid, you know?
Correct. And because, you know what? He was a team player and he wanted to win championships. He didn't care to be the highest paid player on the field. He cared more about winning than money.
I know. Look, I don't push back there.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's a good one to leave it at. Appreciate the call, DB. Again, I can't push back there. It's a great point.
Well,
it's just everybody wants to get paid.
That is a phenomenal segue back to the story that we really had take off in our Daily Wires earlier. Tyreek Hill. Remember last year he was saying all these things about wanting to be the highest paid receiver, wanting to go get those stats, wanting to go get this, want to get that, talking about himself, me. Well, this year in the offseason, his conversation was it's all about the team. Did Tyreek Hill show that? Did he display that going into the game on Sunday? We're going to talk more about that story of Tyreek Hill getting arrested, cuffed, sat down, roughed up by the Miami Police Department. We're going to get into that next here on The Fan Upstate. Man, what an exciting time to be Drew Rosenhaus. Number one, you're getting your clients paid. And going back to the conversation we were having earlier, a lot of times these players, they don't care about being the highest paid. The agent cares about making them the highest paid because then new clients will want to sign with them that they can make a lot of money off of. Well, Drew Rosenhaus also in the media calling for the immediate dismissal and prosecution of the arresting officers that pulled Tyreek Hill out of his car ahead of the Miami Dolphins game on Sunday. If you haven't seen the video yet, it's ugly. It doesn't look good at all. Obviously, audio medium, we can't play you the video, but here's what it sounded like when the officers kind of got fed up with Tyreek Hill. So they had pulled him over. He's on the edge of the road. A lot of traffic, obviously headed towards the stadium
in Miami.
We're assuming that Tyreek was speeding. They mentioned in the early kind of difficult to understand part of the video that they had pulled him over for speeding, and Tyreek said, "I was late." Doesn't mean you can speed, Tyreek, no matter what. Doesn't mean that you can speed to get there. But the officers pull him over. They get his license from him, and then Tyreek rolls the window back up on his Corvette door. And then they knock on the window like, "Yo, roll the window back down." And he doesn't listen. He doesn't roll the window back down. They knock on the window a second time. And Tyreek says, "Hey, what are you knocking on my window? Don't be knocking on my window like that." Like, first of all, Tyreek, I don't think you're in a position to tell a police officer not to knock on your car window. It's not like it's made out of super soft glass. It's not made out of tissue paper, right? It's a car window. People can knock on the glass. It's not going to break it. Well, from that point, things got a little bit out of hand. Here's the audio of the officers pulling Tyreek out of the car.
Hey, keep your window down. Hey, keep your window down. Keep your window down. I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Give me that. Get out of the car. Give me that. We'll break that freaking window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out. 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 What part of that don't you understand? Hey, Drew, I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. I'm getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting out, right?
So, Tyreek, I'm getting out. I'm compliant. No, you took a long time to decide to get out and to comply. So, who's right? Who's wrong in this situation? Tyreek, he claimed that he didn't do anything wrong. He claimed in post-game press conferences that he did everything he was asked to do. And obviously, you can tell that that is not entirely truthful. That Tyreek Hill was pulled over. He gave the officer his driver's license, and then he rolled his window back up, refused to roll his window back down. He was definitely getting a little attitude with the police officer. And then the police officer went from, "You keep giving me attitude, you don't get out of the car, I'm going to pull you out of the car," to, "I'm pulling you out of the car real fast."
You know, what's so interesting about law enforcement, and again, this is just my opinion, Cole's opinion here. As in every single job across America, you're going to have personalities who are calm, who are laid back. I consider myself a very laid back person. I don't get upset much, right? There are other people in our small little Odyssey network in our building who are the opposite, who do get worked up. The point of that is, Diesel, law enforcement's no different. There are officers who are very calm, cool, collected, they would have probably handled that situation different. And there are officers who, this guy in the car refuses to roll down the window, bam, from 0 to 100, right? Mm-hmm. He's PO'd, he's mad, he wants to fight, he wants to get him out, he's a guy that's just ready to react. That's the way that we're designed. People are different. And for whatever reason, Tyreek Hill had to get the cops that sound like are the 0 to 100 cops. I think Tyreek Hill could have handled the situation and dictated how things went, Diesel, if he would have rolled the window down. Now, when people are in those type of stressful situations, if you show them that, hey, I'm complying, I'm calm, whatever you ask, I'm doing it, 9 times out of 10, things are going to go smooth. 9 times out of 10. But he didn't. Now, the officer, Diesel, I don't think should have reacted as hot-headed as he did. Mm-hmm. But again, Tyreek didn't roll the window down. I think both are a little bit at fault here.
So the officer should always be expected to handle themselves professionally,
That's
right?
right.
It doesn't matter if you got in a fight with your wife last night. Doesn't matter if you're at the end of a 12-hour shift and you're exhausted. That doesn't matter. You're expected to handle yourself professionally in every situation. Tyreek, and now this audio is shortened. This is not real time. The entire length of the clip that we just played. This goes down over the course of about a minute and a half, the first part of this audio.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that he went from cool, calm, and collected to 100 like that isn't exactly true either, because Tyreek had been pulled over. He had well over a minute as this situation was happening, and he chose to roll his window up and I'm not going to say the words disrespect the police officer, but he was non-compliant in that situation. Fair. And now I'm not in any way, shape, or form an expert on law enforcement. I've done one police ride along. That doesn't necessarily make me as somebody who knows what police officers go through.
Yeah.
But when somebody with very, very dark tinted windows, as Tyreek Hill had in his Corvette, rolls the window up, police officers cannot see through your window. They have no idea what it is you're doing in there. They don't know if you're setting up to pull a weapon on them. They don't know if you're about to put the car back in drive and try to take off on them.
Sure.
It's a police officer's job to control the situation. And Tyreek Hill was not compliant in that situation. I think there's definitely fault on both sides of this.
Yeah.
Most everybody wants to immediately lay the fault on the police officers for the way that he went from 0 to 100 really fast. But there's also fault and blame to be placed on Tyreek Hill and the way he handled the situation as well. There was a small amount of belligerence and non-compliance in Tyreek Hill as well. Then things got really out of control. They pulled him out of the car violently. They put him face down on the ground. They had his hands pinned, like hands behind his back. The police officer had his knee on Tyreek Hill's hand, like in the palm of his hand. And then they stood him up, walked him over to the curb, and tried to sit him down on the curb.
Yeah.
And that's when things got ugly again. Here's the second piece of that audio.
Hold on, bro. I just had surgery on my knee. I just had surgery on my knee, bro. I just had surgery on my knee, bro. I just had surgery in your ears when we go there. Chill, bro. Chill, bro. Hey, don't do, bro. Back up. Hey, call Drew. Call Drew. Call Drew. Call Drew. Call Drew. Hey, call Drew. Call Drew, bro. Call Drew. Call Drew.
So you see how the situation got amped up very quickly. The officer, let's be real, that's kind of funny.
Sorry,
Did you just have surgery on your ears too?
Have surgery on your ear because you're not. I'm sorry, but that's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like that's a quick, funny comeback.
So you just heard, you're yelling out, I had surgery on my knee, but you're going out and playing on your knee.
God.
And, again, still an amount of resisting, right? He is resisting in this situation. The police officers, I believe, were rough with him in this situation as well.
I've always been told, and I've always been under the philosophy, Diesel, that how you start the conversation will go a long way.
Sure.
And from the very get-go, if that window's rolled down, I would bet none of this happens.
Yeah.
I would bet that the officers maybe even realize who he is. He tells them, they tell him if the window's rolled down. However, what kind of message does that send when Tyreek Hill has the police walk up, the window's up? It's about sending a message. What does that message send? It's not the right one.
The message is, I'm Tyreek Hill. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
Now, there have been people who have made the argument, well, they should have known who he was. No, in no way, shape, or form.
People don't know.
Should the officer,
who watched,
right. I mean, you realize these guys wear helmets for a living, right? I mean, we talked about the same thing when Scotty Scheffler got arrested a couple of months ago. Oh, the officer should have known. Well, no, it's not on the officer who just works in a precinct near this golf course to automatically know who Scotty Scheffler is just by looking at him. His job is to protect and serve.
Yeah.
His job is to chase down drug dealers. His job is to rescue, his job is to do his job, right? His job is not to know who all these famous athletes are and recognize them in the moment. It's Tyreek Hill's job in that situation as a person who realizes he's in the wrong for speeding to comply with the police officer, to roll down the window and say, really sorry, officer. You're right. I was speeding.
Yeah.
I'm late for the game. I'm a player on the team. I'm late for the game. I really apologize, and he probably lets you off with a warning at that point, because I'll bet you there's a solid enough chance that this police officer is a Dolphins fan.
What do you say? 71307. Start your text with the word fan on the YouTube stream. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch the show there. Trey says, I think everyone was in the wrong, but the cops did nothing to de-escalate the situation. Trey, I agree with that. Madcraft says, roll the tinted window up after being disrespectful. Cops have targets on their backs from the moment the shift starts. Disrespectful. Now I can't see you. You're coming out of the car. However, he could have gotten him out and cuffed him without going to the ground as well. Texter from the 618 says Tyreek was being a D-bag and the cop needed to de-escalate better. I think both sides need to apologize, admit they could have done better, and drop it. Let's see. 973 says Tyreek was given "Do you know who I am" vibes. Asking to call Drew is giving my dad's a lawyer vibes. Not wrong. 344 says, what if Tyreek's Corvette had been stolen after he arrived at the situation and he pulled over the car thief? Not really sure what that means there from that text. 316, the real crime is buying a wannabe supercar with that big contract of his. Can't stand the new Corvettes. It's a good text. Good text.
Is it because it's mid-engine?
It's a good text.
Is that what it is? The new Corvettes look nice, man. Do they look like Corvettes? No.
Yeah.
But I love the new Corvettes. I think they look really cool. What are you talking about?
So I think
a hater.
I think the general consensus is, oh gosh, you went there. I think the general consensus, Diesel, is from the Tolos, the level-headed Tolos, not the trolls. I think most people agree that you have to look at it from both sides. Both parties could have probably done better. And, those situations are so tough because you feel like in those situations, I'm sure if you're the cop or the guy in the car, you feel like there's a lot of pressure. And maybe Tyreek, obviously, from the very get-go, if he'd have done something different, the situation, we wouldn't be talking about it right now, probably. It's just it's a tough spot for both, and I hate that we continue to see them.
Well, in the one time that I did a police ride-along with Spartanburg County Sheriff's Department, I was told that a traffic stop is the number one most stressful thing that a police officer has to do, because you are walking up to a big fat question mark. Whenever you pull somebody over, you have no idea how this situation is going to go.
You don't know how their day's going.
It could be a nice little old lady who says, officer, I really apologize. I didn't realize that I was speeding. Or it could be somebody who's waiting behind a tinted window to shoot you in the face. You just don't know. Extremely stressful situation. Everybody's in the wrong. I don't think anything is going to come of this. Drew Rosenhaus, you're not going to get your wish. The police officers are not going to be fired. They're not going to be detained. Shut up. Move on. Your client was in the wrong as well.
All right, Diesel, there has been some movement in the top 25 AP poll, but I'll tell you next what kind of movement you could really see if things go well Saturday in Columbia. Well, the very first texter that brought up the car discussion has been corrected. And I mean, by two different Tolos. Hill wasn't driving a Corvette. He was driving a McLaren. Excuse us.
Whatever.
And another texter, he wasn't driving a Vet. Big difference.
Well, maybe that's the problem with Corvettes is they made them look too much like McLarens.
I didn't know.
Texter, it doesn't matter.
I'm
Focusing
not a
on the wrong part of the story.
But you can't make mistakes. You know, you text her, the first
Sheldons.
texter, you make a mistake, and you're gonna know about it. You're gonna hear about it, by God, especially from a car guy. I'm not a car guy, so there's no way I'd have never known the difference. But knowing the difference, Diesel, Clemson a little bit different. 22 instead of 25. They've moved back up a little bit, or back down, I guess. No, it'd be back up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Up, down. However you want to call it. They've moved back up 3 spots in the AP poll. Clemson now at 22. This week's AP poll, there was some movement. However, not at the top. Them dogs, as you know, Diesel, are still number 1, deservingly so. However,
if only Kentucky had gotten Georgia last week, because last week was the chaos week in college football, right? There seems to be one every year where just one weekend – all the craziness happens in one weekend. Like, nobody's really shocked by a conference loss. Like, if Georgia lost to Ole Miss, nobody'd be shocked. I mean, they'd be a little bit mad, but they wouldn't be shocked. But, like, when Notre Dame loses to NIU, everybody's blown away. Everybody loses their minds. So, same week, Auburn lost to Cal.
That's right. No movement won. However, Texas did move up a spot. Ohio State dropped a spot. So, Texas now 2 in the AP poll. The Buckeyes – O-H-I-O. Oh, God, we shouldn't have done that. We'll get 8 text. We'll get. You know what? I have a soft spot for
engagement farming.
It really is. I don't know why, but when I found out a few weeks ago about our big Ohio State fan base in the upstate, I have a soft spot for those guys. I picked Ohio State this year. Look, I like them. I like the Ohio State. I hadn't met an Ohio State fan yet that I don't like. Yet, keyword. Ohio State 3, Diesel, Bama 4. Despite the game that you and I were watching in the press box Saturday. What game was that? Well, that was Bama, South Florida. While we were watching Clemson annihilate App State, we had a better game on the computer screen. And
God bless high-speed internet connections and modern streaming. It's great.
You know, Alabama ended up winning. I think they scored 21 or something points in the fourth quarter. It didn't look close, but if you look at the score, you may not think that game was close, but that game was really – what a 1-point game in the fourth quarter when you and I were watching. So no movement from Bama.
What'd you say the Alabama fans would say about Kalen DeBoer?
Oh, kill him. Hang him. Fire him. I have friends of mine who I'm in the same hunt club with in Arkansas, and they live in Tuscaloosa, and I saw their Facebook post over the weekend. They're done. Like, they are done. Like, literally, their status is on Facebook where fire him. Get him out of here. I mean, they're done with him.
Didn't a Nick Saban led Alabama team like lose to UL Monroe?
Yeah.
Did they say the same thing when Nick Saban was losing to ULM?
They're mad
when they played Georgia Southern, and he was mad about Georgia Southern. What did he say? He's like, they ran through us like goose bleep through a tin horn.
Yeah. So they pulled it out though. So Bama's 4. Ole Miss rounding out the 5. They did move up 1. Diesel, Missouri at 6 moved up 3 spots.
Okay.
And then speaking of movement, Tennessee at 7 moved from 14 to 7. That's a huge jump. Do they deserve that? I mean, what did they do?
That's big. That's big. I think that's a little too much. I mean, they beat the tar out of NC State, and NC State struggled against Western Carolina. They were certainly propped up by some early preseason overhyping of their ability. So 7 spot. I mean, if Tennessee had moved up from 14 to 10, I'd be like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Now, here's my issue there. It's so early. I don't know that Tennessee's better than Oregon and USC. Maybe they are.
Yeah, but Oregon has struggled 2 weeks in a row.
But to your point about NC State, let's call it like it is. NC State in 2 weeks hasn't looked good.
No.
They hadn't looked like a good football team, and that's probably why they're not in the top 25.
Did they get any votes at all? Did they fall all? I think they fell all the way out of the other receiving votes.
Oh, wow.
And get a single one.
So NC State's gone. They're done for, right? I mean, Tennessee moves up 7. Penn State at 8. Oregon 9. They dropped 2 after a win. Miami moved up to Diesel. Miami now 10. So the top 10 Miami 10, Oregon 9, Penn State 8, Tennessee 7, Missouri 6, Ole Miss 5, Bama, Ohio State, Texas, and Georgia. And then outside the top 10, there was some movement. Notre Dame dropped 13 from the NIU loss. They're now 18. Is Notre Dame, after that, are they deserving to be in the top 25?
Yeah. I mean, look, you can't overreact. Everybody wants to overreact here. And you want to say, oh, sweep them all out. Get rid of them all.
I do. I want to overreact
Don't
right
give them
now.
a single vote. But look, we know that Notre Dame has talent on the roster. They have enough talent to go beat Texas A&M, an SEC opponent who was a top 25 at the time and is sitting at third in others receiving votes this week. Notre Dame has the ability. Do they have the coaching staff? Do they have the scheme? Do they have the discipline? Do they have the preparation? Do they have the quarterback? I get it. There's a lot of questions there. And I mean, I'm just not all for, hey, you're a top 5 team. You lose a game you really shouldn't have.
No, I'm with you.
Get them all the way.
I know.
I
wanted to knee jerk a little bit. Hey, Michigan fell 7 spots. Michigan, Notre Dame combined. That's a drop. Those two, 13 and 7. Both of those teams now 17 and 18. Diesel, Clemson 22, Nebraska 23, Boston College 24. Who's, by the way, they don't look bad. And Northern Illinois, you talk about overreacting. They beat Notre Dame and they find themselves. Is that not overreacting? I mean, to one game, they're in the top 25 now.
We got to figure out who was their first win of the season, because I don't have a link to find the NIU schedule.
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: other receiving votes, Illinois had 101 votes. Boise State had 77. A&M had 68. So
they beat the tar out of Western Illinois.
Oh, okay.
They beat a directional Illinois school that I've never heard of.
Illinois.
And then they beat Notre Dame's 2-0. I mean, put them in the ORV. I mean, these AP voters, they put them where they do because they understand. They're not going to be there long.
How about this, though? You know who received 10 votes? South Carolina received 10 votes. Yes or no, South Carolina pulls the massive upset and beats LSU. They're in the top 25.
Yes. But,
absolutely,
but
right?
Yes or no, will they be in the others receiving votes category next week? That's the question. Because
what do you mean if they lose?
If they lose, they ought to fall all the way out, especially if they lose ugly to LSU. You lose all 10 of those votes. But if they win, they're in the top 25.
If they win, they're a lock in the top 25 for sure. You know, I think if they lose, they're out of the receiving votes. I really do. I don't think they receive votes if they lose.
I mean, NIU jumped all the way up to where they did to number 25 after beating a top 5 team. And then South Carolina would be beating a 1-1 ranked 16th LSU. That's got to be worth enough to jump from 10 to the team with the highest that's not in the top 25 most votes is Illinois at 101.
Yeah, and real quick,
is that going to pick you up 100 votes? That's the question.
Real quick, Texter says, or ask, when will the Burns-Greer game be played? Thanks. As of right now, Texter, still Friday. A lot of teams are considering moving to Thursday, so we'll know hopefully by tomorrow.
When we come back, we talk Carolina Panthers with David Newton of ESPN, a conversation that Cole and I were able to have with him earlier. Very, very busy schedule, so we appreciate him being so accommodating. You'll hear that next. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, joined now by David Newton of ESPN, covers the Carolina Panthers. Now, David, obviously game one of the Dave Canales era didn't get off to a fast start. Didn't really get off to any start at all when you consider the offense looked essentially exactly the same as it did last year. Dave spent a lot of time in this offseason and leading up to this week talking about, getting the football right, sort of the functionality of being a competent football team. And I know you got to kind of dig to find elements of that, but what did you see in that week one performance against the Saints, as deep as you may have to dig to find little nuggets of things that went okay for the Panthers?
Honestly, I didn't think anything went well. I mean, I thought it was a complete meltdown. I didn't think they would win the game, but I honestly thought they would look better. I thought they'd look more like a team. I wrote about Bryce Young's first pass on the Panthers' first play and just how badly that ball was overthrown. I mean, when we first saw it, we thought the ball was being intended for Adam Thielen. And then after the game, it was kind of confirmed from the staff and Dave Canales and everybody that it was actually intended for Deontay Johnson. It was like 10 yards over him. And that was a play that Adam Thielen told me that he said, this is a play we really liked, that we felt comfortable with, that Bryce liked. So that's really a big part of Dave Canales' scheme, is to find what things that Bryce likes and the teams like and go with that. And the fact that it went so poorly right from the very beginning was really a little bit disturbing. And on top of that, the defense, I really thought they would play better. I knew the pass rush or lack of a pass rush was going to be a big concern. But I thought they would be able to play well enough, because this is not an elite Saints team. This is a team that struggled offensively last year, that and they had an old aging defense. And again, the Panthers made them look like the Kansas City Chiefs out there and made Derek Carr look like Lamar Jackson running around. I mean, it was just a complete failure.
David Newton of ESPN joining us right here on Wire to Wire. David, how in the world do the coaching staff, or does the coaching staff and the ownership and the front office, how do they convince the Panther fans out there after that horrible week one performance that there's still room, there's still area for improvement, and we still want the fans to buy in after we told you all offseason things were going to be better, and they simply were not?
Well, I mean, the easy thing is things can only go up from here because they can't get any worse. I mean, that's how bad it was. And I do think that they will get better. I do think that's it's not going to be how it's going to be all year. But even if you remember last year when Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, they went through a 6-game losing streak. And, he was able to keep that group positive, keep them headed in the right direction. And he ultimately were able to win the division. It wasn't a great record, but they were still able to win the division down season. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge right now, not convincing the fans, but keeping this team and these players believing that, hey, we're going to get better. And I think from a personality standpoint, I think Dave Canales is the right man for that.
Joined right now by David Newton of ESPN, covers the Carolina Panthers. In this game, Bryce Young set the standard now for a 68-sack season with 4 sacks in a single game. Alontae Taylor by himself tallied 3 of those. A few of them, I think one of them, he just came completely unblocked. I thought for the majority of the game, most of the Carolina Panthers offensive line played okay football, but a few times they just got beat. I mean, what did you see on those sacks that Bryce took and where the breakdown was in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, they threw some blitzes at them. They weren't ready for them. Taylor, I think, had 1 sack for his career before that, and he had 3 in a game. So that kind of speaks volumes. Just how they weren't ready for that element of the game. I think the disturbing part for me, and go back to the first play. I mean, they just given up a 59-yard touchdown, and Dave Canales and the staff believe they could actually run on the Saints. I think they should have opened up with a run, maybe 2 runs in a row, just to sort of settle things down, get everybody, calm and ready to move forward, go to play to the strengths of that offensive line. And I do think that, run blocking will be the strength of that group. So, they didn't do that, and then all of a sudden you're down 10-0, and it just keeps going from there. You didn't see enough of the run game at all out of this group. Even when they're down 10-0, 17-0, I think they still should have tried to get the ball in the hands of, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders and try to figure something out there, because they were putting it all on Bryce's shoulders right there, and then Bryce's shoulders weren't big enough to carry the way things were going.
David, in your time covering the Carolina Panthers, can you remember a game where Carolina just got destroyed in a way that when the game was over, you literally could not find any positives to take away?
Sadly, there are probably too many of those. But the one I would suggest was, it was a Christmas Eve game, I believe, and it was at the Raiders, and they just got annihilated. I can't remember the final score. I think the Raiders put up 50-something points on them. They never were in that game. So, and that was just a late season game. It didn't matter. This one really mattered because this was a chance for Dave Canales and his staff to make a statement, and the only statement they made was this team's really not much better now, or maybe worse than it was last year at this point. So, there have been others. I mean, they've had 6 straight losing seasons, so there have been plenty. That 1-15 year, there were a lot of games where they looked really bad too. So, there are lots of examples out there, but I think that Raiders game was the one that sort of stood out, where just everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and then the same thing happened on Sunday.
How did David Tepper react to that absolute beatdown? Is a poor, unsuspecting gas station attendant somewhere in Mecklenburg going to get absolutely nailed this week? I mean, despite what he says in press conferences, Dave Tepper has not shown himself to be a patient man. Is he showing the patience with this staff?
I got downstairs before the game was over so I could catch him maybe walking towards the locker room or off the field. I didn't see him, so I can't say what he's thinking right now. I mean, all I can relate to you is after they hired Dave Canales, went up to him with another reporter and said, "Dave, you got a chance to talk about this?" And he looked at us. I guess he'd been reading everything everybody's been writing, saying he needs to stay in the background. He said, he said, "I'm in the background now. I don't have a role in this. If they don't show improvement, I mean." At this point, he's got to stick with Dave Canales and that staff. You just can't make another sudden change. Every time you make a coaching change, I think it sets an organization back, and they've made a lot here in the last 4 years. So whatever he's thinking is probably not great, but I think they've got. Dave Canales said, yesterday when he came back, he looked at the film. That game's over. 3 weeks from now, nobody's going to remember the score. I'm sure a lot of fans will remember the score, but if they were to win this week and the next week, then people will forget what happened there. So I think the best way for things to change right now is for them to find a way to win or at least keep a game close.
David Newton of ESPN, he covers the Carolina Panthers, joining us. If things couldn't have gotten worse on Sunday, Derrick Brown suffered a potential season-ending meniscus injury, David. I don't know how you replace a guy like that after losing Brian Burns in the offseason. Now Derrick Brown, the defensive line, taking a toll.
No, you're right. And Derrick Brown was the best player on this team. I mean, they've got some other decent players and decent pieces, but he was the best player on this team, offense, defense, anything. He had that kind of a year last year, and the reason they gave him the big extension because they thought so much of him. So, and it's kind of like I was talking to some other reporters probably before the season. The one thing you worried about with this group, you thought they had some solid starters, the depth just didn't seem great. And we said if you lose a key player here or there, things could really get bad. So losing Derrick Brown, they didn't stop the run at all on Sunday. And he's their best run stopper. And people would run away from him. And now they've got nobody that's a really solid run stopper on either side, at least at that level. So, they'll have to find some bodies in there to replace them. I know Dave Canales said they just need to have somebody do their job. But there's not many people that do their job in as many ways as well as Derrick Brown. So that's a huge loss for this team. I mean, there's very few players that they could have, no other player probably could have lost that would have had a bigger impact.
David Newton of ESPN joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I know this team wants to try to flush this performance out of their minds heading into week 2 matchup against the Chargers, who, I mean, ultimately they won the game. They didn't look phenomenal. Justin Herbert at least did not look phenomenal. 144 yards through the air and 1 touchdown pass. They really leaned on the run, and J.K. Dobbins was absolutely lights out for the Chargers last week. I mean, is that really what the Carolina Panthers have to do now to be able to beat this team? Is just sell out to stop the run and make a Justin Herbert, who has shown plenty of flashes in his career of being great, making that guy beat you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you completely sell out, because if you do that, that usually ends up being a disaster the other way. But they've got to find a way to slow down that. I mean, the Chargers had 179 yards rushing last week, and they were playing a better. Well, I thought it was a better run defense than the Panthers. Now I'm wondering if there's anybody that's, can be any worse than the Panthers on the run defense. They were that bad. But yeah, I think that they've got to find a way to slow Dobbins down. They've got to find a way to stop the running game completely. Because if they're going to be able to, if they're going to allow the running game to go like it did last week, then Justin Herbert could have a big day and make some big plays, just like you saw out of Derek Carr. It's just you can't allow that, because once a team has you with a run game, they usually are able to dominate you.
David, I know you're not a Vegas insider, but how in the world is that spread only 6.5 points in favor of Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, it's a home game for the Panthers. I mean, honestly, the Chargers aren't that great of a team. I mean, yeah, they won last week. As you said, I didn't see much of their game, but they didn't look great. So I think you have to go with that. I mean, that's still for a home game for the Panthers. It feels like that's double digits.
David, I know last year the fans not showing up was a big storyline. It's tough to kind of gauge a game like this. Obviously, they looked awful in week 1. Fans are still, probably feeling a very real amount of disgust with the franchise and with the ownership. Can you give me a David Newton best guess on what kind of attendance the Carolina Panthers will have for their home opener?
Well, you're right. There was a lot of disgust out there. Luke Combs even chimed in again and said how hard it was to watch. So, yeah, I mean, I was there, and again, I was there in 2001 when they went 1-15, and early season the crowd's probably in the 65 range, 1,000 range. By the end of the season, it felt like it's 35, maybe 1,000 or so. So I don't think it's going to be that bad to start off. As an opening game, I think they're going to have pretty good support. I would say it would be, they're going to announce it's sold out basically, because they've had the PSLs and those tickets are sold anyway. But as far as actually fans in the seat, I think you'll probably see somewhere between 60, 65,000.
David, before
I'm guessing now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Hey, before we let you run, when you talk about this Sunday's game, get right game, we've discussed it. But if Dave Canales were able to buy this fan base back in week 2, what has to go right for the Panthers to get a win on Sunday?
Bryce Young has to get on track. The defense has got to find a way to stop the run. If those two things happen, I think they've got a chance. Again, I really, there were times in training camp, early in camp, where I was starting to believe that maybe that Bryce is not going to turn things around. But then the last couple of weeks of camp, I thought, he's starting to look pretty good, and I think he's turning the corner. And then, lo and behold, they got the opener, and it just went bad at the first play and continued to go downhill from there. So, I mean, 13 out of 30. I mean, if you look at his stats, his numbers that may have been his worst game, as a pro, and that's saying a lot since he had a lot of bad games last year. And you can't put it all on him. I mean, there were a lot. Blitzes weren't picked up. There were some players not getting open. There were a lot of different things going on. They were down early, so he was having to play catch up. But when you spend a draft pick, and all they did to get that draft pick on a guy like Bryce Young, you got to expect him to do things that are a little above and beyond and lift you above those hard moments. And he was not able to do that, even with the better line they put around him, even with the better receivers. I mean, I was blown away that Deontay Johnson only had, a couple of catches for 18 yards. I mean, I really thought he was going to have a pretty decent day. But even he was not able to get on track. So they've got to find a way to get Bryce going.
David, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time and look forward to having you on again soon, man.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
That's David Newton of ESPN. Diesel, man, when you talk about this game Sunday, Chargers minus 6.5. And to David's point, they're, the Carolina Panthers are the home team here, but I still think 6.5 right now, you got to feel like the Chargers win the game and cover. There's just nothing in week one that showed that the Carolina Panthers are going to be able to be a good football team.
Yeah, I mean, the question ultimately is, does that old adage of the most improvement happens from week one to week two really apply to the NFL? It certainly does in college. We saw it with South Carolina Gamecocks. They made their big time improvement going into the week 2 game against Kentucky. Can the Carolina Panthers do the same thing? I mean, even if they get the team to a 50% increase in performance, or whatever you want to say that means, I would still say they probably wouldn't win this game against the Chargers. The Chargers are just a better football team, and you got to think they're going to improve from week 1 to week 2 as well. So it's going to be a tall task for the Panthers hosting the Chargers.
And what David said about the margin for error, the room of error, the Carolina Panthers have so little depth. That injury to Derek Brown, man, like when you talk about the defense, he said it. He's their best player on the team. He's their best guy, and he's their best run stopper. They didn't even stop the run well on Sunday, and now all of a sudden you throw in, oh, by the way, Derek Brown may be done for the season. I hate to be Debbie Downer here, and I hate to be negative Nelly or negative Nancy, whoever you want to call me, but there's just – look, it is week 1. And there is absolutely nothing that you can look forward to and look at this Panthers team and think, oh, there's a bright spot. I don't know that they've ever been in a down. I don't know that this franchise, Diesel, has ever been as down as it is right now.
People get annoyed in the NBA when fans show up to watch the stars from other teams come in and play.
Yeah.
When LeBron and the Lakers come to Charlotte, you don't go to see Charlotte maybe beat the Lakers. You come to see LeBron beat the Hornets with a shovel. And that's kind of where we are with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you come in and you expect to see Justin Herbert put on a show.
Yeah.
And that's what you're hoping for.
Unbelievable is what it is. So we'll see. I'll tell you this, 6.5, sign me up all day long. I'll take it and some. Absolutely. Coming up next, we take a look at early games, early leans, the Upset Picks Challenge. It starts tomorrow. Where are you leaning? What games are you looking at? All that and more next.
Thursday, we'll see a chance of showers and storms with a high temperature of 76. Scattered showers and thunderstorms on Friday with a high temperature of 72. I'm meteorologist Ray Miller on the Fan Upstate. Right now, it's 80.
He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Tuesday edition of Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate. I want to remind you that tomorrow we will be live on location. If you live or work in the Burg, Spartanburg on the west side, we will be at Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg tomorrow, Wire to Wire, 3 to 7 p.m. Myself, Diesel, Melissa, Jay, everybody will be there. So if you're in that side of town, on that side of town, you should make plans to be there as well. It's going to be a fantastic time. And speaking of tomorrow, every Wednesday during football season at 4 o'clock, it is the window that opens, Diesel, for the Tolos to get the upset picks challenge in. And you know what? You know how like when you do, you take a test, if you do this thing called study, you can get really good at these tests. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do a little study session. So break out do you prefer the number 2 pencil or are you a mechanical pencil kind of guy?
I use the mechanical because I'm too lazy to get up, walk across the room, and use that old fashioned.
Well, break out your mechanical with your lead. And the only bad thing is when the lead breaks, you have to replace it, right? That's what I didn't like about it.
Graphite.
So break out the mechanical pencil, your number 2 rule paper, and let's get to studying. The Upset Picks Challenge opens tomorrow at 4. If you haven't made your pick yet, this study session is designed to look at some games, look at some spreads, and make us all smarter. I feel like now that I'm on the board, I feel like I have a good chance.
You do.
Confidence.
You do. Well, I want to remind all the Tolos who are going to be playing in this challenge, going to be getting us your picks. We are not going to be here on Thursday as we are celebrating our ratings. We had a big-time ratings book. All of Odyssey is celebrating. So we're not going to be here on Thursday to take your upset picks. Please, please, please try to get them to us tomorrow, or you'll have to wait until Friday. Now, we are going to accept any picks that come in during the show hours on Thursday, as we normally would. But obviously, we are not going to be here telling you, hey, get your picks in. Hey, get your picks in. You're going to hear Righter Than You or whatever show is on.
Not as good as this one.
Right,
but
exactly.
Yeah. So, we'll still accept them, like Diesel said. But, on a serious note, now that I am on the board, plus 10, right? Because Carolina, I think it's plus 10, something like that. I do feel confident. I know that has nothing to do. There's no way you can get lucky. It's hard to get lucky 2 weeks in a row with these Upset Picks Challenge brought to you by Eagles.
Unless you're Amazon guy.
Unless you're Amazon guy. By the way, you have not officially locked yours in yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, good.
I haven't. I've got a couple that I'm interested in.
You know what? I do too. I was looking last night, Diesel, at a few. I'll tell you this. Tell you where I am interested. You know who I wasn't impressed with Saturday? And I was wrong on. I thought Jaylin Daniels in Kansas would be better. I wasn't impressed. They're 1-1. I do, Diesel, have interest in UNLV over Kansas. Kansas is favored by 7 on Saturday. Jaylin Daniels right now has more picks than he does touchdowns. That's not good, right? It's not a good recipe for winning.
Didn't you say at the beginning of the season he's going to be really good?
Yes, I thought he was going to be fantastic, and I dead wrong on that. He hasn't been good, and that's why. What's, by the way, UNLV Mr. Mascot man over there? What's UNLV's mascot?
The Running Rebels.
The Running Rebels. I like it. That's my early lean. I'll just go ahead and tell you that's my early lean is UNLV. I like that one a lot. 7 points.
My early lean is the Friday night game, Arizona at Kansas State. Ooh. Kansas State favored by 7.5. Arizona's looked pretty good in their 2 games.
That's a top 25 matchup.
They played nobody at this point, right? I mean, let me rephrase that. They looked really good in week 1 against New Mexico, a nobody, 61 points. They looked not so good in week 2 against Northern Arizona, another directional school. You can't lose to the directional schools. 22-10 was the final score in that one. So I like it. I'm thinking maybe they figure something out here in week 2. They still got Noah Fafita on the roster. He's put up 600 yards in the air in 2 games. Very lopsided, but still, that's a lean. I'm not necessarily sold on it. I'm not married to it.
You don't have to be yet. You still have another day.
But I'm interested in it. That's for sure.
Diesel, what about Oklahoma State? The team that burned you last week.
God dang it, Arkansas.
Let's get revenge.
You suck.
Hey, let's do this. Let's do it. 12 o'clock noon. Let's get revenge and take Tulsa plus 20.
Wow.
We would win the whole thing. We would be up there. We'd have a good chance. We'd be in the running. I don't know that we win the whole thing.
Checking notes, not a single person picked NIU last week, I noticed.
That's probably a good thing because that game would be, 30? Was that a 30-point spread?
Something like that. Yeah, 28, 29.
You know what, though? If you want to go big, I don't believe in Oklahoma State.
This is a wild one, Cole. I think this is probably a lock. It's not going to get you any points. Arizona State at Texas State. Texas State plus 1.5. How crazy. Texas State has been a bottom of the barrel college football program for a long time. Quick, do you know the Texas State mascot?
Bobcats.
There you go.
Wow, I got it right. How did I guess that?
They should have changed it when the movie Necessary Roughness came out. They should have changed it to the Armadillos.
Diesel, I have no idea how I guessed that.
Have you ever seen Necessary Roughness?
No.
No. It's a football movie based on Texas.
No.
It's
I need
actually
to see it then.
It's actually based loosely on SMU and their cheating scandal.
Oh,
it's
God, I
about,
like that.
It's about Texas State, a team that just won a title but got busted for some major violations, and so now they've got to build a roster out of their student body. They got a ragtag bunch of players, and they're the Texas State Bobcats. And they got to face the, by God, #1 Texas Colts in that movie.
Texas Colts.
Can
I interest you in South Carolina +7?
That's an interesting one.
It is interesting.
It is interesting because LSU has not played to their potential yet. South Carolina played to their potential, and I think above their potential against Kentucky. Can they do it twice in a row?
And their defense is good, man.
Defense is really good, or is the moment maybe a little too big for them? That's an intriguing one. I like it. I'm also interested.
Please don't say the one I can't believe you haven't said this
I'm
yet.
interested in Alabama at Wisconsin +16.
Okay.
Wisconsin has not blown anybody out, but they played good defense. Again, Western Michigan, South Dakota, a G5 and an FCS, hosting Alabama. You telling me that Alabama coming off that performance, I think Alabama is going to just be lights out, and Kalen DeBoer is going to be on those dudes' backsides to get them playing right. But that's worth a lot of points.
Here is one that I cannot believe you haven't mentioned yet. And I mean cannot believe, Diesel. This might be the one. This might be the one to take. Memphis +6.5 over Florida State.
Could you imagine a world where Florida State starts 0-3, losing to Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Memphis?
But Memphis isn't bad, though.
No, they're not.
That's the thing,
Who
man.
has Memphis beaten? North Alabama and Troy. Throw out the North Alabama game. Troy is a roster that's almost entirely transfers.
I'm telling you.
Because everybody transferred off of their roster.
Diesel, they're not bad. Like, I don't think it'll happen, but quarterback Seth Hennigan for Memphis is a good quarterback. He's completing 70% of his passes. He's thrown for 469 yards in 2 games, 0 interceptions. He takes care of the ball. They've been able to run the ball. The ground game's averaging 135 yards a game. I'm telling you that Memphis isn't bad.
Could I interest you in North Texas +9.5 at Texas Tech? North Texas 2-0. They've scored 87 points in 2 games.
No.
Playing Texas Tech.
No.
Who blew out Abilene. No, let me rephrase that. Did not blow out Abilene Christian. They beat Abilene Christian 52-51.
103
and then they
points
lost 37-16. They've given up 88 points in 2 games, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I am circling that one in a big way.
All right, now, nobody will take this. I'm telling you nobody will take it, Diesel. However, is Boston College with Bill O'Brien, could they pull the upset of the year? And I know NIU over Notre Dame was a big upset. But listen, Tolos, listen to me. Boston College +17 against Mizzou.
No. Not on the road at
Are you
Missouri.
kidding me?
No chance.
Are you?
No
Come on.
chance.
That's BS, man.
Missouri has not given up a single point. Not a touchdown. They have not given up a point.
Diesel.
No field goals, no touchdowns, no safeties, no nothing. They are outscoring their opponents 89-0.
God.
Murray State and Buffalo. Again, grain of salt. Understand who you're talking about here.
But what if they did? What if Bill O'Brien?
Dear God.
17 points would be, I mean, you'd be sitting pretty, man, through 2 weeks.
Yeah, you'd be doing real well. You know what's crazy? This one blows me away. UTEP had been didn't UTEP weren't they good for like a year? And then they fell right back off again. They're 23-point road dogs against Liberty.
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 Hey, any chance Florida? How about this? You wouldn't win a ton of points here, but any chance Florida in the upset pick challenge could go? Actually, this one's at home. At home could beat A&M, maybe. I think that's a winnable game, isn't it?
No, I think A&M's got them.
You don't think?
Here's another interesting low point spread kind of game is West Virginia Pitt. Pitt
3
would
points?
be +3 at home. 3-point dogs.
I don't hate
at
that.
home.
I don't hate that. Again, you wouldn't win a ton of points, but I don't hate it.
Right.
But
see, I never ever hit the low point spread ones that I try to play safe and try to go get. I never hit those ever.
Well, those are tough games to pick. I mean, evenly matched. Let's see. Georgia, Kentucky. Just kidding. Skip. No interest there. What about? Deion Sanders, 7:30 at the rival Colorado State. Both teams 1-1. Deion's favored by 7.
I'm going to say the over-under of when Shadur walks off the field is 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. We had a texter or somebody message in trying to explain away Shadur's. It's because Shadur was injured and Deion said it was okay. Just go to the locker room.
Oh, BS.
Stop. You shouldn't be going to the locker room with 3 minutes to play unless you're bleeding.
I don't think Colorado State will win that game.
No.
But it's not a bad one to look at.
How about this one? Virginia Tech on the road
I saw that
at
game,
Old Dominion.
Man. I saw that.
Old Dominion +14.
You know what?
Old Dominion played real scrappy against South Carolina. They lost by 6 to East Carolina, 20-14. They're not going to score a ton of points, Old Dominion, but they play pretty good defense, it seems.
Yeah, I did see that game.
And they upset Virginia Tech a couple of years ago. There's not that there's any correlation, but maybe there's some good juju up there in Norfolk, Hampton Roads area.
I was looking at that. I don't know.
You know the one to take. If you want to be bold. Take New Mexico +28 at Auburn. Leave it up to Auburn to screw
Leave
the
it up to
pooch.
Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze to drop one to Cal and New Mexico back to
Hey,
back.
last one I'll tell you. I don't hate this one. 7 o'clock Diesel in hot Atlanta. Georgia State hosting Vandy. Vandy's favored by 10.5. What if Vandy comes in riding a high because they're 2-0? We're Vandy 2-0, and Georgia State gets them.
Thinking they'll get a little too big for their britches, huh?
Maybe. I mean, when's the last time Vandy started 3-0? Really? Think about that.
Oof.
You know what I mean?
We need AI to analyze 100 years of Vanderbilt
That's
football.
what I'm saying.
See if it's ever happened
Do you
before.
trust Vandy on the road anywhere? Anywhere.
No,
you
I
name the
don't.
place. That's not a terrible one to look at for the upset picks.
No, not awful. You could also take Rice Houston. That's a 4.5 point spread. Again, you can't lose to food.
Rice and Houston.
But Rice put up 69 points on Texas Southern.
Oh, how many?
69.
Okay.
Giggity. When we come back, Cole, what should the Carolina Panthers do with their inevitable #1 overall pick?
#1 pick.
Who should they take? Should they trade? And then we'll throw a little kicker in there. How high would the first Colorado Buffalo be drafted in the 2025 draft? We'll talk about that next to close out the show on the Fan Upstate. So, Cole, it's already not looking good for the Carolina Panthers. It looks like there's a chance that they don't succeed in their goal to triple their win total.
Ooh,
and
or win a game.
Or maybe win a game at all, right? If we get that performance, they're not going to win anything this year. I mean, that's hyperbole. They'll mess around and win a game or two that they're not supposed to. But
will they?
Will they? Yeah. This team blows. You're right. But they might figure it out. And you're going to get to the week 10, week 11 mark, and people are going to start saying, all right, well, what do we do now? Do we tank for somebody? Do we try to keep winning? I mean, what good does it do you to have the number 15 pick? It doesn't do you any good at all.
Did you say week 10 or 11? More like 3 or 4.
No, no. I'm talking realistically.
I'm telling you,
I'm talking realistically when coaches start looking to see, all right, what do we have? Can we start getting some reps for the young guys? I mean, look, this team may do them a favor and they don't have to tank. But point is, I feel like there's a very good chance the Carolina Panthers are going to end up with, at minimum, at worst, a top 3 pick.
Yes, that's correct.
At worst. And you said you've got odds on the number 1 overall pick already.
Yeah, so the Patriots have it.
What? They won, though.
I know, and these might have been, I'm looking to see when these were up. They might have been done right before the season. Let's see. Trying to see when this was done. It might, like I said, it might have been done last week, but it has the Carolina Panthers before the season started. If this was done before the season, had the Panthers at a 20.8% chance of getting the number 1 pick, according to ESPN's FPI.
Are those where is that in the rankings? Second best chance. Okay. So, I mean, even if it was before the season, this ranking was not very high on the Carolina Panthers and what they thought they might be able to do this year. So there's a very good chance the Carolina Panthers are going to be at worst in the top 3, maybe top 5. And at that point, Cole, you still have some really talented guys. And because this Carolina Panthers team is so bereft at every position group, they're going to need help everywhere. So you kind of can't go wrong unless you do something stupid and trade back so that you can get multiple first round. Here's what the Carolina Panthers would do. They would have the 4th or 5th overall pick, and then they would trade back to get number 28 and number 15 in the second round. It's like, what the hell are you thinking, you guys?
Okay, I'll say this. If they don't look way better in the next 3 to 6 weeks, the Bryce experiment's over.
You think so?
You got to get – if you don't do so, get rid of
the question then is, do you tank just by leaving him in?
Yeah,
absolutely. You leave him in. People have already said, let's give Andy Dalton a chance. I mean, if Andy Dalton is your quarterback, is their best option,
that's bad.
You're in deep doo-doo. But at least Andy Dalton is a veteran that's got some experience and could mess around and win you some games. I mean, look at how he performed last year on the road at Seattle. They didn't win the game, but he looked good.
He was good in Dallas.
Yeah,
he was the backup. If you went and got
holds
Quinn
a hell
Ewers,
of a clipboard.
He does. He does a great job. The way the forearm, the way he puts one side. I mean, he does great. If you go get Quinn Ewers and you do have the number 1 pick, or let's just say this: if you have the number 1 pick and you're that bad, that means you win what 2 or 3 games.
Gotta be Quinn.
There's no
matter what, you're going quarterback.
You can't
no matter
keep
what.
the quarterback.
Well, could I interest you instead of going Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck? Could I interest you in an elite edge rusher like Mykel Williams at Georgia?
No.
How about an elite edge rusher like James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee?
No.
How about Travis Hunter, who could play wide receiver or corner?
Does he play quarterback?
No.
No.
How about Shadur?
No. I want Quinn if I'm a Panthers fan. It's pitiful, but that's the
win
world.
For Quinn.
You have to. The Panthers are toast. The Bryce Young experiment, I'm calling it. It's over. We're live at Ingles on Warren Abernathy Highway.
Jets.
Tomorrow. Tolo.